if struck by a chill or a vision of ancient grace. And he gazed with a stare at my nut-brown hair till the blood rushed to his face. From Bantry Bay up to Derry Quay, and from Galway to Dublin town, no lad I've seen has a look so keen as I saw here in County Down. And I knew the spell was cast. He gripped his walking stick with a hand so quick as he tripped o'er his feet. For a lad so bold, he was knocked from his hold by a girl that he chanced to meet. From Bantry Bay up to Derry Quay, and from Galway to Dublin town, no lad I've met hasn't a name to set against the star of the County Down. Now they say he's gone to the Harvest Fair with the heart all in a knot, to ask my name and to play the game and to find my humble cot. Well, let him come and let him drum his fingers on the door. If he's half the wit as he's got the grit, I might like him a wee bit more. From Bantry Bay up to Derry Quay, and from Galway to Dublin town, ne'er a lad I've sought has a heart so caught by the star of the County Down. Snow on the heather, smoke from the roofs. I stand on the ridgeline, breathing the proof. Sky like a pale bowl, frost in my hair, name on my tongue tip, thin in the air. I call across the pines, he's yellow, high and wild and wide. If you're lost, then follow the sound wind takes the branches, braids them in song. Far in the darkness, something replies, echo or answer, tears in my eyes. Ooh, where are you now? I won't fall silent. Call across the pines, he's yellow. Why, if you're lost, then follow the sound. Let it guide you through the night. Come home. Come home. The fire smokes black when she walks through the door, a shadow that stretches across the stone floor. She carries the staff, she carries the sight, a piece of the morning in the heart of the night. Satan, 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 Satan.
The staff hits the wood where the kings used to stand. Fate is a needle in a trembling hand. You asked for the rune, you asked for the flame, but you're too weak to carry the weight of your name.
The thread is unweaving. The truth is bereaving. The vulva is spinning. The spirit and bone. The seeds of your ending have already been sown. She sees the high hall. She sees it in ash. The glint of the gold. The sting of the lash. She speaks to the dead. She drinks from the well. There are secrets the living are too frightened to tell. The thread is unweaving. The truth is bereaving. By spinning the spirit and bone. The seeds of your ending have already been sown. The thread is unweaving. The truth is bereaving. The vulva is spinning. The spirit and bone. The seeds of your ending have
is full up. The weird is full up.
Across the foam where the gray sea dies, I see the gold in your mortal eyes. Leave the iron machine, leave the rust, leave the men who turn to dust.
I see the light, I see the shore, but my heart is tied to the threshing floor. How can I ride where the shadows go, when the wind of home is all I know?
Tiananong is calling.
Beyond the mist where the sea is new,
Leave the world of the gray and the falling. Hashim, Harun, I am calling you. 10,000 winters in a single breath. The land of youth, the end of death. Time is a cage, time is a lie. Come to the land where we never die.
I took the saddle, I left the clay, but the ghost of home wouldn't fade away. 300 years passed like a sigh, while I watched the golden birds fly by.
Hashim, my love, stay on the horse.
I must see the hills, I must find my sword.
If you touch the ground, the years will strike.
The world is changed, it is nothing alike. I touch the ground and the ground turned gray. My brothers are bones, they have blown away. My skin is a shroud, my heart is lead. I wake among the ancient dead.
The veil is thin, the light is long. We are the pulse, we are the song. You chose the shore, you left the tide. The mist has closed on the mortal side.
Good and fair evening, denizens of the tavern. Welcome in, members of the kingdom, your highness, King Norcalius. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I apologize that I wasn't in when you got here. But let's go ahead and give His Highness and the denizens of the kingdom a toot on the right horn, and then we'll get to our hellos. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Welcome in, friends and companions from all across the kingdoms. Hello, my friends. How did things fare in the kingdom tonight, Your Highness? Saw Jane in here earlier. Good to see you all. Let's get to our hellos real quick, though. We've got, of course, His Highness, King Norcalius. We have Sir Chatty Matty. We have Frostbeard. We have the Bear. We have Erin. I think I saw Tyson in earlier. We have Quirt. And I think that is everyone. Oh, and Maiko is now raiding in. Give me a second, Maiko. I'll give you a toot on the raid horn. Frost, thank you for your 10 streams. Tyson, thank you for your 20. Erin, thank you for your 30. Absolutely exceptional, friends. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And then Tyson buys a round for the tavern. Here we go. Sláinte, my friends. Dominic, hello, welcome in. Two raids on the tavern in but 10 minutes. Here's a toot on your raid horn, Michael. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Welcome, welcome, my friend. Dealing with beavers and such. Oh, beavers can be quite the thing to deal with, Your Highness. Yes, they can. Your friends getting in early, ready to wind down for the night and chill with you guys. Well, that sounds like an exceptional way to spend the evening. And then Jody, thank you for the drink. I appreciate you. Welcome in. Thank you for the open door in this fine establishment. Of course, was it Tjalfe or Tjalf? Either way. I just watched Mother's Day burrito video. Beautiful house, by the way. Thank you, Erin. It's just where we stay for the time being. And now Sir Chatty Matty is raiding in with... Glad we're getting all of the raid horn out of the way early on so that we're not waking anybody up. Let's give Matty his toot on the raid horn and then we'll be done for a bit. Dogo, hello and welcome in. So very glad you could join us. Did you do a mock stream just so you could raid in, Matty? I think he just wanted to raid in. I think that was it. Blood is cleaned. I'm sore and exhausted. Was here, saw Matty go live, and now I'm back. I'm very confused. Oh, you're gonna ruin Erin's streak. What did you do? But that is good news, Milo. I'm glad to hear it. Let's see. Durgo, you've been in before, if I remember correctly. So welcome back. Very glad to have you. Well, Your Highness, I appreciate the raid, Maiko, and for everyone who came in with Maiko, Psycho, and the Kingdom. If you all have anything to do, please go and do those things. We're glad to have you. But for anyone who's sticking around for story time, tonight is our adult story time, which means it can get a little bit more intense. And we are in The Prince of the Blood by Raymond D. Feist. And it is heating up, my friends. We are in quite a predicament. The twin princes of Arutha and the Kingdom of the Isles have found themselves in the desert kingdom of Kesh, and they are now separated with one believed dead, but actually kidnapped and enslaved. It is going to be one hell of an evening. Let me see if we have anyone else who I missed. We've got Berkey and Dominic, as well as Fernando. Hello, my friends. Good to see you, good to see you. Welcome in. Great tunes while waiting for the program. Hello, Storyteller. Well, I'm glad you enjoy the tunes. That is the ladies' playlist. She's got excellent taste. Darth Nexus, hello! You have a heart me and a go popular. Thank you kindly. And Aaron, thank you for the heart me. I appreciate you guys for that. Tips to the tavern keeper are always appreciated. Never required, but always appreciated. Thank you kindly. Alright. And it looks like for some reason the ads on Twitch already ran. I don't know why that happened, but it did, so we don't have to waffle about for too much. Alexander Glover, you said first time here, super excited. Well, we're very glad to have you. For anyone who is new, who's never been in the tavern for story time, we do these every Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesday is family night, where the book is safe for you to come in with your family, your children, whatever, and we are in the midst of Eragon. Thursday night is the more mature night, is more adult night. Now, we don't read anything explicit, because that would get us banned. And I don't particularly care for super explicit things myself anyways. So nothing too gory or overtly sexual, but Feist's books are exceptionally good, adult fiction, and that means there will be some more dread, some more intensity, a little bit more swearing perhaps, and they're very good. So tonight is our adult story night, so grab your seats, settle in. We're going to start here presently. They ran almost straight away. That's so odd. I wonder if I accidentally clicked something while I was setting everything up. Because they're not supposed to run unless there's a warning, so I might have accidentally clicked on something. The vocabulary is a bit more elevated. Yes, yes. John J. Torres, hello, my friend. Welcome in. It's good to see you. Castle After Dark. Indeed, Your Highness, indeed. Or at least something of the like. So Feist is not particularly explicit, but occasionally he just does have one or two uncomfortable sentences that are just sort of thrown in out of nowhere. For this one, it was with Duke Jimmy or Duke James coming up behind his future wife, seeing her bent over in a lake and admiring her posterior. So that was interesting. It was very much out of nowhere, and I was not expecting it. But otherwise, it's been relatively mellow. Herring, hello and welcome in. Good to see you. All right, friends, everyone, grab a seat, settle down. We are gonna jump right into it here. Again, for anyone who is new, I don't know if anyone from the kingdom who came in or anyone else doesn't know who I am. I am Castle, this is my tavern, and here we talk about myth and lore and tales of yore, and every now and again I read you all a bedtime story. Tonight, as I said, we are in Prince of the Blood by Raymond E. Feist, and you have found yourself in a tavern at the end of the world where all stories eventually come to rest, and you found your way here because you sought a story. So grab a seat, fill your glass, and join us for a tale. I enjoyed your reaction to that. It was just so out of nowhere, and the same thing happened in Magician, where just out of nowhere, Pug, who was at the time a pubescent hormonal boy in the story, was describing how Carline was dressed, and again, it just came, every once in a while it comes out of nowhere, and then goes back to normal. What's funny is I think it was Bobby over on the Twitch portal. Oh, also we have 5 portals into the tavern. If you're on any one other than TikTok, so if you're on Facebook portal, YouTube portal, Twitch portal, or the Kick portal, you'll see a combined chat here where everyone is talking. If you're on TikTok, all you'll be able to see is the TikTok chat. If you are on the Facebook or YouTube portal, you're going to be anywhere from 15 to 90 seconds behind everybody else, because that's just how it works. I haven't been able to fix it. I don't know why it does that, but it does that. So, the most active of all of the chats is over on the Twitch portal. That's where most folk do their chatting. But you are welcome to watch wherever is most comfortable for you, finding your way in however is most comfortable into the tavern. Jessica, hello. Monkey, hello. Susan, thank you kindly for the heart me, as well as for the TikTok gifts. Thank you kindly for that. Tips to the Tavern Keeper always appreciated. Off to TikTok again. Thank you, Erin. I appreciate you very much for that. Somebody said that it's glitchy. Quick Range LLC, the video is really glitchy. It's all fine on my end. I'm not having any issues. You can try refreshing. Quick Range. If you have a preferred name, please let me know. And Jacob, hello, Castle. Just got home from work just in time. Grab your seat, fill your drink, my friend. It is, in fact, time. And Pint Goblin, you didn't miss anything. You're here just in time. I forgot today was Thursday. I am having, I'm having a couple of issues that's making sitting and talking difficult. So I've been dealing with that while trying to get work done, and I completely forgot that today was Thursday. So we're getting on late today because I was irresponsible. I forgot today was Thursday. So that's my fault. Just got a raise at work. Well, congratulations. We'll raise a glass to that. Everyone, Jacob got himself a raise. Let's give a toast to Jacob. Congratulations. The way you said that in the beginning, it was almost like the end of story time. I'm early. Yeah, you are quite early, so you're good. You could have. No, I don't. So I'm having a couple of, and I don't really want to go into this because I don't ever want to make it sound like I'm complaining. I'm having a couple of medical issues that are causing pain, but I have all kinds of body issues that cause pain. So it's like I'm not unduly suffering. Like I'm not. It's nothing bad, like overly bad. I'm addressing the things, but I'm having a couple of issues that are just making it uncomfortable to sit or talk. I've got some swelling in my jaw, and it's making these things uncomfortable. I don't ever want to not give you guys story time or open up for the bedtime stories, because this is the tavern. This is what we do, and I don't ever want to push things off if I don't have to. Pints Goblin says, so all the drinks are on Jacob tonight, huh? Oh, Jacob, you brought up your raise, now everybody wants drinks. You gotta be careful with that. These rambunctious bunch, they'll celebrate you till your wallet's empty. I am taking care of myself. Like, there are a couple of issues that, so I've told you all before that I have heart issues, I have liver issues. These have been things that I've had since I was very young. They've been around. I've had these issues since I was a child, 12 years old, and they've gotten progressively worse as I've not taken care of myself into my adulthood. These have now apexed at a couple of things that I can't just ignore now, because it used to be that I could just work my way around the problems that I was having. These two things, I can't particularly do that now. I have to go and get them fixed by somebody who is not me. So now I'm in the process of going and getting the things fixed. I should have had them addressed ages ago. The only reason why they're as bad as they are is because I didn't take care of them when I should have. So I've got nobody I can blame but me. It's my fault that it's happening, So, but it's not like you guys don't need to worry about me. I'm fine. Nothing is gonna happen. That's just what happened today. So, I promise Sonomi I'm fine. Also, Sonomi, it's good to see you. I know you guys would have been fine, but you guys don't deserve to miss story time just because I'm having a little bit of discomfort through the day. I can get plenty of pizza for sure, and we've got pints domestic for $1.75 Monday through Friday. There you go, Jacob. Make sure you get it all sorted properly. Quartz says, I used to buy lemon curd to put on my cheesecake. I don't particularly care for citrus dessert. I don't like citrus, period. But the lady and the boy, they love lemon curd and lemon flavored things and meringues and all of that. Let's go Hobbs, Canadians. They beat the Canes. Congratulations. Yay. I don't know what that is, Rick. But I'll raise a glass to it. Has been said time and time again, self-care always comes first. I do agree with you, Frost. This is one of those things where nothing can really be done. So it's... Oh, ice hockey. Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. like regardless of like if I didn't get on and do story time, and if I didn't do these story times, I would still be uncomfortable because it's a long process to getting them fixed. So breaks are necessary. I have no idea what a break even looks like. if I take a break, then I just constantly sit and think about all of the things that I should be doing instead of taking the break. And it's because I love my work. I love what I do. Almond roca cheesecake, the fire cheese sake. Ah, I see. Boo Hobbs. Got Canadians fighting in the chat now. It's time I take over the tavern. Will now be in my care. The tavern will become a protein fitness gym. Feel my pain. So I promise not to run in the opposite direction of Una today, Castle. All right. I got some heart damage from chemo, and I've noticed beetroot makes a big difference in my daily life. I don't know what you do for it, but it seems helpful. My heart issue kind of corrected itself as I got older. So I still have heart issues, but they're very mild. The issue that I have now is that my digestive tract and muscle connectors, so like my joints and my tendons and my intestines are all very messed up. I did love playing with you, Nuna. It was fun, Matty. It was fun. We don't often take time to sit and play games anymore, so it was nice to do it. ATG lover, welcome in. You've marked the tavern on your map. You should be able to find your way back the next time that you seek a story. So much for the waffles. I know. Yeah, let's get into it, Frost. Let's get into it. I wanted to apologize for being late, but I also don't want to make any excuses. I'm trying to be transparent with you guys. I'm working very hard to get healthy now. Like the last few years, I have neglected my health a lot. I've not exercised as much as I need to, and I've had way too much caffeine, just because of the work schedule the lady and I keep is very rigorous, and I'm now seeing the ramifications of those things in my day-to-day life. And I don't want to be sick all the time. And I'm not sick. I'm not ill, any more sick than I have been, you know? You never arrive late, you arrive precisely when you mean to. I wish that were true, Tyson. I wish that were true. I arrive precisely when I do is a more accurate way of putting it. Yeah, but I want to make sure you get some story tonight because I think you have one more day of school left, right, Frost? Songbird, hello, thank you for the hot knee and the go popular. I appreciate you for that. Tips to the tavern keeper always appreciated. But yes, I'm getting the things taken care of, and I should be better at least to some degree in the coming months. I'm hoping that the mouth issue doesn't get so bad I can't talk, because that would be bad, because my entire job revolves around being able to talk. So you're saying the tavern is a Waffle House of sorts, but less fighting. We don't do as much fighting in this Waffle House. So it is a Waffle House of sorts, just not as WWE as a standard Waffle House. Step away from the mead. I see the bubbles in your beard. That's just natural. That those come in naturally as a part of my genetics, Goblin. All right, friends, let us begin. When we last left off, Boric had been kidnapped, and Erlond was very upset about it, thinking that he was dead, since they found his ugly boots beneath a rock. A far more civilized Waffle House, exactly. We tried to be much more civilized. Matty and I fight WWE style. I can't imagine that Matty would hold up well in a WWE style match. Love the boy to death, but he's more of a wizard build than a barbarian build. Here's to the MTL's 28th Stanley Cup. Wow, Spectacular. Yeah, Erin is saying that you and her WWE style fight. I love Waffle House late nights. Dinner and a show was never so cheap. Fair enough. Alright, friends, here we go. Chapter 7 of Prince of the Blood by Raymond E. Feist. Captive. Boric awoke. He lay motionless, straining to hear through the confusion of voices and sounds that were ever present in the camp, even at night. For an instant, while still half dozing, he had thought he'd heard his name being faintly called. Sitting up, he blinked and looked around. Most of the captives still sat huddled near the campfire, as if its light and warmth would somehow banish the cold fear in their souls. He had chosen to lay as far from the stench of the waste trench as possible, on the opposite side of the band of slaves. As Boric moved, he was again reacquainted with the manacles that bound his wrists and the odd-looking flat silver metal that reputed property of blanking out all magic powers of whoever was forced to wear them. Boric shivered and realized the desert night was indeed turning cold. His robe had been taken from him and his shirt as well, leaving him only a pair of trousers to wear. He moved toward the campfire, eliciting the occasional cold curse or complaint as he forced his way between captives reluctant to move. But as all the fight had gone from them, his inconsiderate shoving through a mass of slaves got him nothing more than a glare of anger or a muttered oath. Boric sat down between two other men who attempted to ignore his intrusion. Each lived moment to moment in his own world of misery. A scream cut through the night as one of the 5 women captives was again assaulted by the guards. Earlier, a 6th woman had struggled too much, biting out the neck artery of the guard who was, I can't say that word, earning both of them death. Here's the swifter and less painful. From the sound of the pitiful wail that trailed on after the scream, Boric considered her the lucky one. He doubted any of the women would be alive by the time they reached Durban. By turning them over to the guards, the slaver avoided problems for many days to come. Should Eddie survive the trip, she would be sold cheaply as a kitchen drudge. None was young enough nor attractive enough that it would be worth the slave master's trouble to keep them out of the guards' reach. As if summoned by Boric's thoughts of him, the slaver appeared at the edge of the campfire, and he stood there in the golden red glow of the firelight and made his tally. Pleased by what he saw, he turned towards his own tent. Cassim, that's what Boric had heard him called, he had marked him well. For some day the prince was certain he would kill Cassim. As he moved away from the closely guarded slaves, another man called his name and approached. The man's name was Salaya, and he wore a purple robe Boric had won 2 nights before in Stardog. When Boric had first come to the camp in the dawn hours that morning, the man had demanded the robe at once, and had beaten the prince when he appeared slow to remove it. The fact Boric was wearing manacles at the time seemed to make no difference. After the prince had been struck repeatedly, Cassim had intervened, pointing out the obvious. Salaya was hardly mollified as Boric had one wrist and then the other freed while he removed the robe. He seemed to blame Boric for that embarrassment before the others his own impatience has caused. As if it had been the prince's fault somehow that Salaya was a stupid pig. Boric had marked him for death as well. Cassim gave some instructions to Salaya, who seemed to listen with a half-surly, half-attention. Then the slaver was gone, heading off towards the string of horses. Most likely, thought Boric, he was off to supervise another band of slaves being brought to impromptu caravanserai. Several times during the day he had considered revealing his identity, but caution always overruled him. There was a good chance he would not be believed. He never wore his signet, always finding it inconvenient when riding, so it was locked in his baggage among those packs the bandits did not capture. While red hair might make them pause to consider the possibility of his claim, it was in no way unique among those who lived in Krondor. Blonde hair might be the norm for fair-skinned people living in Yabon and along the far coast, but Krondorians numbered as many redheads as blondes among the citizenry, and proving he was not a magician would take some doing. For what difference was there between someone who doesn't know any magic and someone who knows magic but pretends he doesn't? Boric was decided. He would wait until they reached Durban, then seek to find someone a little more likely to understand his circumstance. He really doubted Kasim or any of his men, especially if they were all as bright as Saleh, would either understand or believe him. But someone with the intelligence of the master of such of these might. So, Boric could most likely ransom himself to freedom. Taking what comfort he could from thoughts like these, Boric pushed the half-dozing captive, moving him a few inches, so Boric might lay down again. The blows to the head had made him very groggy, and sleep beckoned often. He closed his eyes, and for a moment the sensation of the ground spinning beneath him made him nauseous. Then it passed, and soon fitful sleep descended. I've had Donald, where's your trousers going in my head since he said it. Okay, I'm going to try sleeping for now. Good night, everyone. Good night, Milo. Rest well. I hope that you have a wonderful night and that you rise tomorrow ready to face the day. Okay, Castle has to say trousers when trousers show up in a book. You want me to say trousers? All right. I will say trousers whenever it shows up. We will make fun of the English as the Scottish do. Cassie, hello, good to see you. Welcome in. You're just in time. We've only just started. Shashika, hello and welcome in. Grab yourself a seat, settle in. We are in the midst of bedtime stories. The sun burned like the angry presence of Prandor, the fire god himself. As if hanging only a few yards above him, the sun beat down on Boric's fair skin, searing it. While Boric's hands and face had been lightly tanned when serving at the northern borders, the scorching desert sun burned him to weakness. Blisters had erupted along Boric's back the second day, and his head swam from pain of his burns. The first 2 days had been bad enough, as the caravan had moved from the rocky plateau country down into the sandy wastes the local desert men called the ergs of the Yalapur. The 5 wagons had moved slowly over what was less dirt than hard-packed sand, baked to brick finish by the same sun that was now slowly killing the slaves. 3 had died yesterday. Saleh had little use for the weaklings. Only healthy, strong workers were wanted on the slave blocks at Durban. Kasim had still not returned from whatever business he was upon, and deputized the caravan leader was revealed for the sadistic pig Boric had marked him in their first minute of meeting. Water was handed out 3 times a day. Before first light, at noon break when the drivers and guards halted to rest, and then with the evening meal, the only meal. Boric corrected himself. It was dried mush bread with little flavor and little that gave strength. He hoped the soft things in the bread were indeed raisins, but he had not bothered to look. Food kept him alive, no matter how distasteful it might be. The slaves were a sullen group, each man lost in his own suffering, weakened by the heat. Few had anything to say to each other. Talk was needless waste of energy. But Boric had managed to glean a few facts from one or two of them. The guards were less vigilant now that the caravan was into the waste. Even should a slave escape, where would he go? The desert was the surest guard of all. Once in Durban, they would rest for a few days, perhaps as long as a week, so bloody feet and burned skins could heal, and weight would be regained before they were offered upon the block. Travel-weary slaves brought little gold. Boric attempted to consider his choices, but the heat and sunburn had weakened him, made him ill, and the lack of food and water was keeping him dull and stupid. He shook his head and tried to focus his attention on ways to escape, but all he could manage was to move his feet, one, then the other, pick them up and let them fall before him over and over until allowed to halt. Then the sun vanished and it was night. The slaves were ordered to sit near the campfire as they had been for the last 3 nights, and listen to the guards having sport with the 5 remaining captives. They no longer struggled or screamed. Boric ate his flat piece of bread and sipped his water. The first night after entering the desert, one man had gulped his water, then vomited it a few minutes later. The guards would give him no more, and he had died the next day. Boric had learned his lesson. No matter how much he wished to tilt his head and drain the copper cup, he lingered over the stale, warm water, sipping it slowly. Sleep came quickly, and the deep, dreamless sleep of exhaustion, with no real rest obtained. Each time he moved, angry sunburns brought him awake. If he faced away from the fire, his back smarted at any touch of heat. Yet if he moved from the fire, the cold brought him chills. No matter how far or close the source of his discomfort, he was soon overcome by his fatigue until he moved, and the cycle began again. Then suddenly, spear butts and boots kicks aroused Boric to his feet with the others. In the cool of the morning, the almost damp air seemed nothing so much as a lens for the sun, bringing the searing touch of Pandore to torment the slaves. Before an hour was past, 2 more men were fallen, left where they hit the sand. Boric's mind retreated into itself. An animal consciousness was all that remained, a cunning, vicious animal that refused to die. Every iota of energy he possessed was given over to but one task: to move forward, not to fall. To fall was to die. Then, after a time of mindless moving forward, hands seized him. "Stop!" commanded a voice. Boric blinked, and through flashing yellow lights he saw a face. It was the face composed of knots and lumps, angles and planes, skin dark like ebony over a curly beard. It was the ugliest face Boric had ever beheld. It was magnificent in its repulsiveness. Boric began to giggle, but all that came from his parched throat was a dry wheeze. "Sit," said the guard, helping Boric to the ground with a surprising gentleness. "It is time for the midday halt." Glancing around to see if he was being observed, he opened his own water skin and poured some out into his hands. "You northerners die from sun so quickly." He washed the back of Boric's neck, dried his hand by running it through Boric's hair, cooling his baking head slightly. "Too many have fallen along the way. Kasim will not be pleased." Quickly he poured a mouthful for the young prince, then moved on as if nothing had passed between them. Then another guard brought each around the water skin, and cups and clamor for water began. Each slave who could still speak announced his thirst, as if to remain silent was to chance being ignored. Boric could barely move, and each motion brought waves of bright yellow and white light and red flashes behind his eyes. Yet almost blindly, he pushed out his hand to take the metal cup. The water was warm and bitter, yet sweeter than the finest Natalie's wine to Boric's parched lips. He sipped the wine, forced himself to hold it in his mouth, as his father had taught him, letting the dark purple fluid course around his tongue, registering the subtle and complex components of the wine's flavor. A hint of bitterness, perhaps from the stems, and a few leaves left in the vat of must. While the winemaker attempted to bring his wine to just the proper peak of fermentation before barreling it. Or perhaps it was a flaw. Boric didn't recognize the wine. Its lack of body was noticeable. Its lack of noticeable body and structure, and was deficient in acid to balance the fruit. It was not a very good wine. He would have to see if Papa was testing him, and Erlon putting a poor local wine on the table to see if they were paying attention. Boric blinked, and through eyes gummy from heat and dryness, he could see where the tip was. He was to spit the wine if there was no... How was he to spit the wine if there was no tip bucket to spit into? He mustn't drink it, or he would be very drunk, as he was only a small boy. Perhaps if he turned his head and spit behind the table, no one would notice. "Hey!" shouted a voice. "That slave is spitting out his water." Hands ripped the cup from Boric's hands, and he fell over backwards. He lay on the floor of his father's dining hall and wondered why the stones were so warm. They should be cool. They always were. How did they get so warm? Then a pair of hands lifted him urgently from his sitting position, and another helped hold him up. "What's this? Trying to kill yourself by not drinking?" Boric opened his eyes slightly and saw the vague outline of a face before his. "Good night, Shashiga. Rest well. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night." Songbird, you're gifting while my head's down. Thank you for the rose and the live and the divine fingers, a shard of hope, and for the TikToks. Thank you kindly. Tips to the tavern keeper are always appreciated. Thank you very much. Boric opened his eyes slightly and saw a vague outline of a face before his. Weakly he said, "Father, I can't name the wine, Father." "He is delirious," said the voice. Hands lifted him and carried him, and then he was in a darker place. Water was daubed over his face and poured over his neck, wrists, and arms. A distant voice said, "I swear by the gods and demons, Salea, you haven't the brains of 3 days dead cat. If I hadn't ridden out to meet you, you'd have let this one die too, wouldn't you?" Boric felt water course into his mouth, and he drank. Instead of the half-bitter cup, it was a veritable stream of almost fresh water he drank. Salea's voice answered, "The weak ones fetch us nothing. It saves us money to let them die on the road, and not feed them." "You idiot!" shouted the other. "This is a prime slave. Look at him. He's young, not more than 20 years. If I know my business, and not bad looking under the sunburn, healthy. Or at least he was a few days ago." There was a sound of disgust. "These fair-skinned northerners cannot take the heat like those of us born in Yalpur. A little more water and some covering, and he'd have been fit for the next week's block. Now I'll have to keep him an extra 2 weeks for the burns to heal, and his strength to return. Master, enough! Keep him here under the wagon while I inspect the others. There may be more who will survive if I can find them in time. I do not know what fate befell Kasim, but it was a sorry day for the guild when you were left in charge." Boric found this exchange very odd, and what had happened to the wine? He let his mind wander as he lay in the relative cool under the wagon, while a few feet away the master of the Guild of Durban Slavers inspected the others who, in a day's time, would be delivered to the slave pens. "Rain, hello!" "Thank you, Songbird, I appreciate you." Frost buying a round for the tavern keeper. Thank you, Frost, I appreciate you, brother. And posture check. Thank you kindly. Storytime edited by 4Kids TV. Alright, where was I? "Durban," said Solomon. Oh, hang on. Okay, yeah, that's where we are. His face of dark knots split into a wide grin. He drove the last wagon in the train, the one in which Boric rode. The 2 days since Boric was carried into the shade of the wagon had returned him from the edge of death. He now rode in the last wagon with 3 other slaves who were recovering from heat stroke. Water was there for the taking, and their burned skins were dressed with soft oil and herb poultice, which reduced the fiery pain and the dull itch. Boric rose to his knees and then stood upon shaky legs as the wagon lurched across the stones in the road. He saw little remarkable about the city, save the surrounding lands were now green rather than sandy. They had been passing small farms for about a half day. He remembered what he had been taught about the infamous pirate stronghold as a boy. Durban commanded the only arable farmland between the Vale of Dreams and the foothold of the Trollholm Mountains, as well as one safe harbour to be found from the land's end of Ranom. Along the south coast of the Bitter Sea, the treacherous reefs waited for ships and boats unfortunate enough to be caught in the unexpected northern wind that sprang up routinely. For centuries, Durban had been home to pirates, wreckers, and scavengers and slavers. Boric nodded to Salman, the happy little bandit that had proved to be both friendly and garrulous. "I've lived there all my life," said the bandit, widening his grin. "My father was born there too." When the desert man of Yolpor had conquered Durban hundreds of years before, They had found their gateway to the trade of the bitter sea. And when the Empire had conquered the desert men, Durban was the capital city of the desert men. Now it was the home of the imperial governor. But nothing had changed. It was still Durban. Tell me, asked Boric, do the three guilds still control the city? Solomon laughed. You're a very educated fellow. Few outside Durban know of this thing. The Guild of Slavers, the Wreckers Guild, and the Captains of the Coast. Yes, the three still rule in Durban. It is they, not the imperial governor, who decide who is to live and die, who is to work, who is to eat. He shrugged. It is as it always has been. Before the Empire, before the desert men, always. Thinking of the power of the Mockers, the Guild of Thieves, and Krondor, he asked, what of beggars and thieves? Are they not a power? Ha! Answered Solomon. Durban is the most honest city in the world, my educated friend. We who live there lay at night with doors unlocked, and may walk the street in safety. For he who steals in Durban is a fool, and either dead or a slave within days. So the three have decreed. And who is foolish enough to question their wisdom? Certainly not I. And so it must be, for Durban has no friends beyond the reef and sands. Boric slightly patted Solomon on the shoulder and sat down in the back of the wagon. Of the 6 slaves, he was the quickest to recover, as he was the youngest and the fittest, and the others were older farmers, and none had shown any inclination to quick recovery. Despair robs you of strength faster than sickness, Boric thought. He drank a little water and marveled at the hint of ocean breeze that came into the wagon as they headed down the road toward the city gate. One of his father's advisors, and the man who had taught Boric and Erlond how to sail, Amos Trask, had been a pirate in his youth, raiding the free cities, Keg, and the kingdom under the name Captain Trenchard, the Dagger of the Sea. He had been a renowned member of the Captains of the Coast. But while he had told many tales of the high seas, he had said almost nothing of the politics of the captains. Still, someone might remember Captain Trenchard, and that might stand Boric in good stead. Boric had decided to keep his identity hidden a while longer. While he had no doubt the savers would send ransom demands to his father, he thought he might avoid that sort of international difficulties that would arise should it come to pass. Instead, he might bide his time in the slave pens for a few days, regain his strength, and then flee. While the desert was a formidable barrier, any small boat in the harbor would be passage to freedom. It was nearly 500 miles of sailing against the prevailing winds to reach Land's End, Baron Locklear's father's city, but it could be done. Boric considered all this with the confidence of one who, at age 19, did not know the meaning of defeat. His captivity was merely a setback, nothing more. The slave pens were sheltered by shingle roofs, rested upon tall beams, protected. I should probably check to see how long until we have to. 5,000 likes, thank you, Songbird, I appreciate you. And for everyone else who's liking over on TikTok, and for anyone who likes and shares the story time, it's deeply appreciated, my friends. That is how we find new folk to join us here in the tavern. You get the doors as far as they will go. Alright, where were we? The slave pens were sheltered by shingled roofs rested upon tall beams, protecting the slaves from the noon heat or expected storms off the bitter sea. But the sides were open slats and crossbeams so the guards could watch the captives. A healthy man could easily climb over the 10-foot fence, but by the time he reached the top and crawled through the space between the fence and the crossbeams supporting the roof 3 feet above, guards would be waiting for him. Boric considered his plight. Once he was sold, his new master might be lax in his security, or he might even be more stringent. Logic dictated he escape while confined close to the sea. His new owner might be a Quagian merchant, traveller from the Free Cities, or even a kingdom noble. What would be worse, he could be carried deep into the Empire. He was not sanguine about letting fate make that choice. He had a plan. The only difficulty lay in getting cooperation from the other prisoners. If a long enough diversion could be arranged for, then he could be over the fence and out into the city. Boric shook his head and realized as plans go, it wasn't much. Psst! Boric turned to see where the odd sound came from. Seeing nothing, he turned back into himself as he considered improvements on his plan. Psst! This way, young noble! Boric looked again through the bars of the pen, but this time down. In the scant shadows he saw a slight figure. A boy, no more than 11 or 12 years old, grinned up at him from a meagre shelter of a large roof support. If he moved more than an inch in any direction, he would certainly be spotted by the guard. Boric glanced around, seeing two guards at the corner speaking to one another. "What?" he whispered. "Should you but divert the guard's attention for an instant, noble sir, I will be indebted to you for ages," came the answering whisper. Boric said, "Why?" "I need but a moment's distraction, sir." Counting no harm from it, save perhaps a blow for insolence. Boric nodded, moving to where the guard stood. He said, "Hey, when do we eat?" Both guards blinked in confusion, and then one snarled. He jammed the butt of his spear through the staves of the fence, and Boric had to dodge not to be struck. "Sorry I asked," he said. Chuckling to himself, he moved his shoulders under the rough shirt they had given him, fighting the impulse to scratch. The sunburn was healing after being dressed for the last 3 days, but the peeling skin and the itching were making him doubly cross. The next slave auction was over a week away, and he knew he would be on the block. He was regaining his strength quickly. A tug at his sleeve caused him to turn, and there beside him was the boy. "What are you doing here?" The boy gave him a questioning look. "What do you mean, sir?" "I thought you were trying to escape the pains," said Boric in a hoarse whisper. The boy laughed. "No, noble youth. I needed the distraction so magnanimously provided, so I might enter the pain." Boric looked heavenward. 200 prisoners, all dreaming continuously of a way out of here, and 200 prisoners, all dreaming continuously of a way out of here, and I've met the one madman in the world who wishes to break in. Why me?" The boy looked up to where Boric's gaze went, and said, "To which deity do you speak, my lord?" "All of them. Look, what is this all about?" The boy took Boric's elbow and steered him into the center of the pen, where they would be least conspicuous to the guards. "It is a matter of some complexity, my lord." "Why do you address me as my lord?" The boy's face split into a grin, and Boric took a good look at him. Brown cheeks red by the sun dominated a brown face. What he could see of the boy's eyes, made narrow slits by merry amusement, suggested that they were dark to the point of being black. Under a hood several sizes too large, ill-cropped coarse black hair shot in differing lengths. The boy made a slight bow. "All the men are superior to one as low as I, my lord, and deserve respect, even those pigs of guards." Boric couldn't help but smile at this imp. "Well, then, tell me why you, alone among sane men everywhere, would wish to break into this miserable company." The boy sat upon the ground and motioned for Boric to do likewise. "I am called Salih Abdul, young sir. I am a beggar by trade. I am also, I am ashamed to admit, under threat of punishment from the three. You know of the three?" Boric nodded. "Then you know that their wrath is great, and their reach long. I saw an old merchant who had paused to sleep in the midday sun, and from his torn purse some coins had fallen. I had waited until he had awoke, and chanced upon him not miss his coins. Then I would have but found them upon the ground, and none would think worse of me. But, not trusting the gods to keep the man from noticing his loss, I sought to pick them up while he dozed. As Lady Luck decreed, he did awake at the worst moment, and cried, "Thief!" to all who were nearby. One who recognized me added my name to the shout, and I was pursued. Now I am being sought after by the three for punishment. Were better to hide among those already condemned to slavery. Boric was silent for a moment, at a loss to answer that. Shaking his head in wonder, he asked, "Tell me, in 9 days, when we are to be sold, then what shall you do?" With a laugh, the boy said, "By then, gentle lord, I shall be gone." "And where shall you go?" asked the prince, his eyes narrowing. "Back to the city, young lord. For my transgression is slight, and the three have much to concern their attentions. Some great issues are being decided now, at the governor's palace, or so the rumour in the streets tell. Many officials of the three, as well as the imperial envoys, come and go. In any event, after a few days, those who are searching for myself will be about other business, and I may safely return to my craft." Nitso, hello my friend, welcome in, good to see you. Alright friends, I think that we are going to, yes, we're going to need to run ads here for just a second. I'm going to go check on the lady. So we're gonna take a quick break here. Let's see, how long does this chapter have? We don't have much longer in this chapter. We might get a chapter and a half in tonight, actually. We're not making terrible progress. We've got another 8 pages or so. So we're gonna pause here. I'm gonna put on ads. I am going to hop up, go check on the lady, and whilst I am up, I'll put the lady's playlist on for you all. So we shall return presently, my friends. We're gonna mute you, play you. Xenochris just discovered your channel, and I really stayed to listen to the whole story. Well, Xenochris, I'm glad that you are here. I'm glad that you're enjoying yourself. I certainly will. I certainly will. I will give her hugs from all of you. We're actually ahead on night ads tonight. What's wrong? It's a good question, Frost. We're actually doing pretty well tonight. Well organized. I'm getting all of my things together. I will give her all of your love, Frost. Alright friends, we'll be right back.
A silver shadow moves over the height. Breed carries embers to swallow the night. Her footsteps are soft as the falling of wool, while the moon o'er the she is heavy and full. Oh, breathe, breathe life in the cold of the clay. Lead us from shadow and into the day. The spark of the forge and the flow of the spring. Wake every winter-bound slumbering thing. The wheel is a-turning, the lights on the wing. She stands at the anvil where destiny's cast, to hammer the future and soften the past. smoke of the morning in breeds blue eyes. Oh, breathe life in the cold of the clay. Lead us from shadow and into the day, with the spark of the forge and the flow of the spring. Wake every winter-bound slumbering thing. The snowdrop is waking. The shadows are breaking. Breed is here. The light is drawing near.
frost runes and winter's own will. Old Emer is dreaming in temples of glass, waiting for shadows of ages to pass. Wake from the ice sleep, the fire is won, the sky candle rises, the wheel has begun, the hammer is falling.
the salt sea foam, the light is finding its long way home.
Wake from the ice sleep, the fire is won, the sky candle rises, the wheel has begun, the hammer is falling on shackles of coal, turning the silver to rivers of gold.
Sleep, giant sleep. The earth is ours to keep. I trace the lines of the mountain's face, a map of stone in an ancient grace. The iron cold and the heavy sky, the winter's breath is a lullaby. I walk the path that my fathers knew, where the old gods sleep and the mist is blue. Through the biting wind, the story ends where the path begins. We are blood, we are the blood, we are the bone. We never walk these woods alone. The earth remembers its own. 1,000 years in a single breath, the dance of life and the song of death. The smoke will rise from the valley floor to lead us back to the open door. The runes are etched in the frozen ground. Within the silence, the truth is found. The heart is a fire. The spirit is iron. I am the echo, I am the mountain. Carry the flame through the biting wind. The story ends where the past began. We are blood,
Emerald, I'm glad you could drop in. Turn this down. Ads are definitely done. Yeah, I should hope so. The lady decided that she was ready to come out and start doing work. Tapping to boost Black Dragon Temple. Thank you, Songbird. I appreciate you. And the lady sends her love to all of you as well. She is right across from me now, so she can probably just give it to you herself. I just saw this posted and wanted to say a belated hello. Sadly can't stay because I am exhausted, so good night as well. Good night, Crow. It's always lovely to see you. I hope that you rest well, that you rise tomorrow ready to conquer the day. And if you're gonna keep us up in the background, I'll do everything that I can to make sure that you get a nice, gentle story time taking you off into the dream world. Daniel, thank you for the follow over on TikTok. You've now marked the tavern on your map. You should be able to find your way back the next time that you seek a story. Matty sends big hugs. All right, let me get my ears back in. Get our background music back in. All right, wonderful. Oh, you said hi, big sis, hugs from Matty. I just read big hugs from Matty, so I missed part of it. Oh, all right, my friends, we're getting back in. Thank you, Cassie. I appreciate you. Castle, you upgraded it. No takesies backsies. All right, where were we? Boric shook his head. Can you get out of this as easily as you got in? The boy shrugged. Probably. Nothing in life is certain. I expect I shall be able to. If not, it is the gods' will. Boric gripped the young beggar's shirt, pulling him close. In whispers he said, Then, my philosophical friend, we shall cut a bargain. I shall help you in, and you shall help me out. The boy's dark face paled. Master, he said, almost hissing between his teeth. For one as adroit as I, we might contrive a means to release you from your captivity, but you are the size of a mighty warrior, and those manacles upon your wrists confine your movement. Have you any means for my release of these? How could I? Asked the frightened boy. You don't know? What kind of thief are you? The boy shook his head in denial. A poor one, master. If truth be known, it is the height of stupidity to steal and urban. Therefore, I am also a stupid one. My thievery is of the lowest order and the most inconsequential of thefts. Upon my mother's soul, I so swear, master. Today was my first attempt. Shaking his head, Boric said, Just what I needed. An incompetent thief. I could get free myself if I had a pick. He took a breath of calming himself so as not to frighten the boy more. I need a hard piece of wire. So long, a thin nail might work. He showed the boy by holding up a thumb and forefinger 2 inches of length. The manacled chain made the gesture difficult. I can get that, master. Good, said Boric, releasing the boy. The instant he was released, he turned as if to flee. But anticipating just such a reaction, Boric's foot went out and tripped the beggar. Before the boy could scramble to his feet, the prince had him by the shoulder of his garment. You make a scene, said the prince, indicating the guards a short distance away with a nod of his head. I know what you're going to do, boy. Don't seek to flee my grasp. If I'm to be sold at auction in a week's time, I might as well not go alone. Give me one more excuse to turn you over to the guards and I will. Understand? Yes, master, whispered the boy, now completely terrified. Boric said, I know you, boy. I've been taught by one who was to you, as you are to the fleas who live in your shirt. Do you believe me? Sully nodded, unwilling to trust his voice. If you betray me or leave me, I will ensure you don't go to the block alone. We are in this one, do you understand? The boy nodded, and this time Boric saw his agreement wasn't just to gain his freedom, but to show that he believed Boric would indeed turn him over to the guards if he attempted to abandon the prince. Boric released him, and the boy fell hard upon the ground. This time he didn't attempt to run, but simply sat upon the hard-packed dirt, a look of fear and hopelessness upon his face. O Father of mercies, I pray to you, forgive my foolishness. Why, oh why, did you cast me in with this mad lord? Boric settled to one knee. Can you get me the wire, or were you just lying? The boy shook his head. I can get it. He rose to his feet and motioned Boric to follow. Boric followed him to the fence, and the boy turned his back so the guards would not see his face, should they look in his direction. Pointing to the boards, the boy said, Some of these are wrapped. Look for what you need. Some of these are warped. Look for what you need. Boric turned his back as well, but studied the fencing from the corner of his eye. About 3 boards down, a warp had bowed the fence outward slightly, pushing out a nail. The prince leaned against the board and could feel the nailhead poking in the shoulder. Boric turned slowly and pushed the boy against the board. The boy leaned into it, and in one motion, Boric hooked the edge of his metal cuff over the nail. Now pray I don't bend it, he whispered, and then with a quick yank, the nail was free. Stooping to pick it up, he moved to hide his prize from any watching eyes. Glancing around, he saw to his relief that no one had bothered to take note of this odd behavior. With little movements, he had one, then the other manacle off. He quickly rubbed his chafed wrists, then put the manacles back on. I'm sorry, Bear. I forgot to grab your coffee. Road to Faith, hello, my friend. Good to see you. What are you doing? Whispered the young beggar. If the guards see me without the bracelets, they'll come investigate. I just wanted to see how difficult it was going to be to get them off. Obviously not very. Where has a noble son such as yourself learned such a thing? Asked Sully. Boric smiled. One of my instructors had a colourful childhood. Not all his lessons were standard teaching for... He had almost said princes, but at the last instant he said noble sons. Ah, said the boy. Then you are of noble birth. I thought this much from your speech. My speech? Asked Boric. You speak like one of the commons, most noble lord. Yet your accent is that of one of the highest born families, even royalty itself. Boric considered. We're going to have to change that. If we're forced to hide in the city for any length of time, I must pass as a commoner. The boy sat. I can teach you. Looking down at the manacles, he said, Why the special confinement, son of the most noble father? They think I'm a magician. The boy's eyes widened. Then why have they not put you to death? Magicians are most troublesome to confine. Even the poor ones can visit boils and hairy warts upon those who displease them. Boric smiled. I've almost convinced them that I'm a poor tutor. Then why have they not removed the chains? I've almost convinced them. The boy smiled. Where shall we go, master? To the harbour, where I plan to steal a small boat and make for the kingdom. The boy nodded his approval. That is a fine plan. I shall be your servant, young lord, and your father will reward me richly for helping his son escape this evil den of black-souled murderers. Boric had to laugh. You're given to a noble turn of phrase yourself now, aren't you? The boy brightened. One must be gifted in the use of words to earn one's living as a beggar, my most glorious lord. To simply ask for alms will bring nothing but kicks and cuffing from all but the kindest of men. But to threaten them with curses of the most elaborate sort will bring gifts. If you say, may your wife's beauty turn to ugliness, what merchant would bother hesitating in his passing? But should I say, may your mistress grow to resemble your wife, and may your daughters do likewise, then he'll pay me many coppers to remove the curse, lest his daughters grow to look like his wife, and he can find no husbands for them. And his mistress grow to look like his wife, and then he lose his pleasure. Boric grinned, genuinely amused. Have you such powers of cursing that men fear you, sir? The boy laughed. Who is to say? But what man would hoard a few coppers against the chance that the curse might work? Boric sat down. I shall share my meals with you, as they account the bread and stew. But I must be free of this place before they finally tally for auction. Then they will raise alarm and search for you. Boric smiled. That is what I wish for them to do. Boric ate his half of his dinner and gave the plate to the boy. Sully wolfed down the food and licked the tin plate to get the last bits. For 7 days they had shared Boric's rations, and while they both felt hunger, it was sufficient for them. The slavers gave generous portions to those headed to the auction. No dark circles under the eyes, nor hollow cheeks, nor shrunken frames would lower price if a few meals would prevent it. If any others had noticed the unorthodox manner in which the boy had joined the company in the pen, no one had commented upon it. The slaves were quiet, each man lost in his own thoughts, and little attempt was made to converse. Why bother to make friends with those that would most likely never be seen again? Whispering so that no one would overhear, Boric said, We must flee before the morning tally. The boy nodded, but said, I don't understand. For 7 days he had been hiding behind the assembled slaves, ducking to not be included in the head count. Perhaps he had been seen once or twice, but the guards would not bother to recheck the number if they had one too many heads, simply assuming they had miscounted. If there had been too few, they would have recounted. I need as much confusion in their search for us as possible, but I want most of the guards back at the auction the following day. You see? The boy made no pretense of understanding. No, master. Boric had spent the last week profitably picking the boy's brain for every piece of information he could about the city and what lay in the area surrounding the Slavers' Guild. Over that fence in the street to the harbour, Boric said, and Sully nodded to show he was correct. Within minutes, dozens of guards will be racing down the street to find us before we can steal away on a boat to Keg or elsewhere, right? The boy nodded. It was the logical assumption. No one in his right mind would risk the desert, right? Certainly. Then we're going to head towards the desert. Master, we will die, Boric said. I didn't say we'd go into the desert, just that we'd head that way and find a place to hide. But where, master? There are only houses of the rich and powerful between here and the desert, and the soldiers' barracks at the governor's house. Boric grinned. The boy's eyes widened. Oh, gods preserve us. Master, you can't mean. Boric said. Of course. The one place they'll never look for 2 runaway slaves. Oh, kind master, you must be joking. to torment your poor servant. Don't look so crestfallen, Sully, said Boric, glancing around to make sure no one else was watching. You gave me the idea. Aye, master. I said nothing about delivering ourselves up to the governor. No, but if you hadn't been trying to hide from the slavers in the slave pen, I'd have never thought of this. Boric slipped the manacles and motioned for the boy to stand. The guards at the far end of the pen were playing a game of knuckle bones, and one delegated to keep watch was dozing. Boric pointed upward and the boy nodded. He stripped his robe, leaving himself unclothed, save for his breechcloth. Boric made a cup with his hands, and the boy took one step, and Boric half lifted, half threw him up into the overhanging beams of the roof support. The boy moved agilely along the beams to the farthest corner from the gambling guards, near where the single guard dozed. Hesitation and any sort of noise would undo them, so Boric found himself holding his breath while the little beggar scampered to the corner of the pen. There, Boric quickly climbed a few feet of the fence, reached up to grip the robe the boy had tied around the beam. Hauling himself over the fence, with two pulls he swung down to where the sleeping guard lay. Suli Abdul climbed down to hang almost directly over the sleeping guard. In a coordinated movement, the boy lifted the guard's metal helm from his head. As Boric swung the manacles, the iron struck the guard on the side of the head with a dull crack, and the man slumped down. Not waiting to see if they were observed, if one of the other guards noticed, they might as well give up now. Boric leapt up, grabbed the hanging robe. Pulling himself up beside the boy, he paused a second to gulp his breath back into his lungs, then motioned. Suli set off in a crouched over silent walk along the beam that ran the length of the roof. Boric followed. Though his bulk forced him to move on hands and knees, crawling behind the slight boy. Over the gambling guards they moved, then into the gloom at the far end of the compound. They dropped off the top of the last pen, then leapt to the outside wall. Half falling, half jumping, they hit the ground and were off in the night, running as if the entire garrison of Durban was on their heels, heading straight for the home of the city's governor. Phil, hello. Good to see you, brother. Love what you're doing, keep it up. Well, thank you. Tell your lovely wife I said hello. Boric slipped the manacles and motioned for the boy to stand. The guards at the far end of the pen were playing a game of... Oh, no, we already read that, didn't we? Oh, yes, we did. I'm sorry, we're over here. Boric's plan had worked as he had thought it would. In the busy house of Governor Durban, there was much confusion and many people moving. A nameless pair of slaves crossing the courtyard to the kitchen elicited no comment. Within 10 minutes, the alarm had been raised, and many of the city's watchmen were in the street, crying that a slave had escaped. By then, Boric and Sully had found a nice attic in the guest wing of the house, vacant and, from the amount of dust on the floor, unused for years. Sully whispered, "You are certainly a magician, my lord. If not the sort they thought of, a different kind, no one will think to search the governor's home." Boric nodded, and he held his finger to indicate silence, then lay back as if to sleep. The excited boy could hardly believe his eyes when the young man fell into a fitful doze. Sully was too tense and excited and afraid to try to sleep. He glanced through the small roof window they had used to enter the attic, the one which gave them a clear view of part of the governor's courtyard and some of the other wing of the house. After watching the occasional comings and goings of the household, the beggar turned to inspect the rest of the attic. He could stand easily enough, though Boric would have to stoop. He walked carefully upon the beams of the room, lest any who might happen to be beneath the attic hear the movement. At the far end of the attic, he found a trap door. Putting his ear against it, the boy heard nothing. He waited for a long time. or at least he felt it was a long time before prying the door up slightly. The room below was empty and dark. The boy moved the trap carefully, attempting not to cause dust to fall into the room below, and stuck his head through the trap. He almost cried out to turn to see a face inches from his own. Then his night vision adjusted, and he saw he was nose to nose with a statue, a sort imported from Kay, life-size and carved from marble or some other stone. The boy put his hand upon the stone head and lowered himself into the room. He glanced around and was satisfied the room was being used for storage. In a corner, under some bolts of cloth, he found a dull kitchen knife. A poor weapon was better than none, he thought, and he stuck the knife into his robe. Moving as quietly as possible, the boy inspected the only door in the room and tested and found it unlocked. Opening it slowly, he peered through a tiny crack into an empty, dark hall. He moved cautiously into the hall and slowly walked to where the hall met another, also dark. After listening, Sully was certain no one was using this wing of the governor's large home. He scurried along, checking in rooms randomly, and found that they were all deserted. Many were empty and had few furnishings covered with canvas tops. Scratching his arm, the boy glanced around. Nothing suggested itself to him as likely plunder, so he determined to return to the attic, see if he could get some rest. Then, at the far end of the hall, as he was leaving, he noticed a faint line of light. At the same instant, the silence was broken by a distant sound of an angry voice. Caution and curiosity fought. Curiosity won. The boy stole down the hall to find a door through which muffled voices could be heard. Putting his ear to the wood, the boy heard a man shouting, "Fools! If we had known ahead of time, we could have been prepared." A second voice, calmer, answered, "It was chance. No one knew what that idiot Reese meant when he brought word from La Fée about the princely caravan and a few guards was ripe for the taking." "Not princely," said the first voice, anger barely contained. "Prince's caravan. That's what he meant. And the prisoner who escaped tonight was the prince. Bork, or the goddess of luck, is having more sport with us than I care to imagine. He was the only red-headed slave we took." The calmer voice said, "Lord Fire would be displeased that he lives with Bork thought dead. Our master's mission is completed. But should the living prince of the Isles make his way home?" The angry voice said, "Then you must ensure that he does not, and for good measure, that his brother dies as well." Dakota, hello, welcome in, good to see you. Grab a seat. We are in Bedtime Stories with Prince of the Blood by Raymond D. Feist. Sully attempted to peek through the crack in the door and saw nothing. Then he looked through the keyhole. He could see a man's back and part of a man's hand resting upon a desk. Then the man at the desk leaned forward and Sully recognized the face of the governor of Durban. His voice was angry. "No one outside this room can know the escaped slave is Prince Bork. He must not be allowed to identify himself to anyone. Circulate the rumor he killed a guard while escaping, and order that the slave be killed the instant he is caught." The man with the calm voice moved, blocking Sully's view. The beggar stood back, fearing the door was about to be opened, but the voice said, "The slavers will not like a kill-on-sight order. They will want public execution, preferably death by exposure in the cage, to warn the others against escaping." The governor said, "I will placate the guild, but the fugitive must not be allowed to speak. Should any discover we had a hand in this, he left the thought unfinished. I want to laugh, and there is silenced as well. Sully moved away from the door. Boric, he thought to himself. Then his new master was Prince Boric of the House of Condoin, son of the Prince of Crondor. Never before had the boy known fear he knew this minute. This was a game of dragons and tigers, and he had stumbled into the middle of it. Tears ran down his face as he hurried to the attic, barely keeping his wits about him enough to close the door silently when he passed through into the storage room. Using the Quagade statue, he boosted himself back into the attic and carefully put the trap back. He then scampered to where the dozing prince lay, and softly he whispered in his ear, "Boric." The young man was instantly awake and said, "What?" With tears running down his face, Sully whispered, "Oh, my magnificent lord, have mercy. They know who you are, and they are searching for you in force. They seek to kill you before the others discover your identity." Boric blinked and gripped the boy by the shoulders. "Who knows about me?" "The governor and another. I could not see who. The swing connects to the governor, where the governor holds council with others. They speak of the slave with the red hair who escaped this night, and they speak of the Prince of the Isles. You are both." Boric swore softly. "This changes nothing." "It changes everything, gentle master," cried the boy. "They will not stop searching for you after a day, but will hunt you down for as long as they must. And they will kill me, for I know too." Boric let go of the frightened boy and swallowed his own fear. "Then we'll just have to be more clever than they are, won't we?" The question sounded hollow in his own ears, and if the truth were to be known, he had no idea what he would do next. And so ends Chapter 7 of Prince of the Blood, my friends. Good Lord, Feist knows how to write a roller coaster, I'll tell you that. Let's see, that's 5 plus the 3. The next chapter is 18 pages long. How far into 18 pages do you guys think we can get in the next hour? You think we can make good headway in the next hour, half hour? I think we probably could. I think we can get at least halfway through this chapter. I think we can probably get 10 pages in before we're done. Yeah, screw it. We'll try and get as far in as we can. Let's see, Stop it. Alright, we got 22 minutes before our friends on Twitch are going to need ads again. Yeah, I think we can probably get halfway through. God nuts of God pieces. Good night, Jody. I appreciate you. I hope that you rest well and you rise tomorrow ready to conquer the day. And I appreciate you joining us. As always, you're always a pleasure. And it's always a privilege to have you. Chef Vanilla Gorilla, hello, my friend. Songbird says, let's go. All right, we'll do it. Good evening, old friend. It's good to see you. Gorilla, how have you been? Hope that you're faring well and taking care of yourself. I'll take a tiny sip for you all, Sloucher. And then a round for the tavern from the Emerald's Lady, Jody. And a drink for me from Matty. And as we, oh, that's right. It was today was your last day. Yeah, we can run the ads now. Well, see, but the issue is that it's not gonna give us like we won't have 80 minutes. Then yesterday was spectacular. Well, I hope that you enjoy your vacation, Frost, and I'll enjoy having you with us later now during story times. Maybe we'll do some more casual things but on Twitch whilst everyone's off for the summer. Everything has been splendid. Hope all is well with yourself. All is as well as it possibly can be. We are doing our very best to keep up with everything in the tavern and enjoying ourselves along the way. Can't ask for much more than that. So we'll wait the 20. We'll wait like 15 minutes because if we run them now, it's not going to give us 80 minutes without ads. It'll only give us 60. Like we have to run them every 60 minutes. It's dumb. I don't like the way that Twitch does their ad thing because it would be nice if we could just run 9 minutes of ads at the beginning and then have the full 3 hours off. But they don't do that. They make you run them periodically, like bastards. All right, so we'll do maybe 5 pages, and then we'll run ads again, and then we'll see how far we can power through from there. All right, we are on chapter 8, Escape. The boy shook his head no. Yes, repeated Boric. Sully again shook his head. He had been almost speechless since returning to the attic. In a hoarse whisper, he said, "If I go back, they shall kill me, my prince." Boric leaned forward and firmly took the boy's shoulders. He attempted to fill his voice with as much menace as possible while whispering, "And if you don't, I will kill you." From the terror that shone in the boy's eyes, he must have succeeded. The debate was over the boy's refusal to return to listening post near the governor's chambers to discover more of what was said there. Boric had told him that the more information they possessed, the better their chances of survival. The theory seemed lost upon the terrified boy. Discovering that the prisoner who escaped was the royal prince from the neighboring kingdom was a shock. Enough of a shock to push the boy to the brink of hysteria. Then, by the time the boy had returned to the attic, it had sunk in that every power in the city of Durban was being turned toward finding that prince, and the one thought in mind to kill him. That had him teetering over the edge of hysteria. Then it hit him that whoever was found in the company of said prince would be disposed of at the same time. To ensure his silence, the boy found himself hanging over the brink of hysteria, his feet churning in the air as he clung with all his might to what reminded him of his wits. He sat silently crying, only his fear of discovery keeping him from wailing like a scolded cat. Boric at last saw the child was beyond reason. Shaking his head in disgust, he said, "Very well. You remain here, and I'll go. Which way was it?" The prospect of this large warrior knocking over statues and banging into furniture in the dark, and making enough noise to wake the entire city, hit the boy like cold water. It was an even more fearful choice than risking capture one more time. Shivering, the boy swallowed his fear and said, No, my good master, I'll go." He took a moment to collect himself and then said, "Stay quiet, and I will go and listen to what was said." Once he had made the choice, the boy acted without hesitation and moved back to the trap door. He levered it up and slipped through silently. Boric thought that despite everything, the boy showed a particular type of courage, doing what had to be done regardless of how frightened he was. Time passed slowly for Boric. After what seemed an hour, he began to worry. What if the boy had been caught? What if instead of a round-faced little beggar coming through that trap, an armed warrior or assassin climbed up into the attic? Boric picked up the dull kitchen knife and held it tightly. It was scant comfort. More minutes passed and Boric was left alone with the sound of his own heartbeat. Someone wanted him dead. He had known that since the football match in Krondor. Someone named Lord Fire. Silly name, but one designed to hide the identity of the author of that order to kill the son of the Prince of Krondor. The governor of Durban was part of the plot, as was the man in the black cloak. Probably a messenger from this Lord Fire. Borik's head ached from stress, fatigue, hunger, and the after effects of his journey across the desert, but he forced himself to concentrate. For the governor of even a pest hole city like Durban to be involved in such a plot meant two things. The author of the plan to plunge the empire into war with the kingdom was placed highly enough to influence many people of rank. And the plot was far-flung, as there were few places within the empire farther away from the capital city as Durban. The trap opened and Borik tensed, bringing his knife to the ready. "Master," said the familiar voice, whispering. Sully had returned. Even in the dark, Borik could sense his excitement. "What?" The boy hunkered down close to Borik so he could whisper the news. "Much consternation in the city from your escape. The auction was closed tomorrow. This is an unprecedented thing. All the wagons and pack trains from the city are being searched. Any man with red hair to be arrested at once, gagged so he may not speak, and brought to the palace for identification." "They really want to ensure no one knows I'm here." Borik could almost sense the boy's grin as he said, "Difficult, master. With so much alarm in the city, sooner or later someone will discover the cause. The captains of the coast have agreed to sweep the sea lanes between the Rhys and Keg, from here to Krondor, to find the runaway slave. And every building in the city is to be investigated and searched underway as we speak. I do not understand this thing." Borik shrugged. "I don't know either. How they could get so many people to agree to this sort of business without telling them what they're after." Borik moved toward the tiny gap in the support beam of the roof where he could peek into the courtyard. "That's another 5 or 6 hours to dawn. You might as well get some rest." "Master," hissed the boy, "how can you rest? We must flee." Borik said softly, "Fleeing is what they expect. They're looking for a young man who is fleeing, alone, a red-haired man." "Yes," agreed the boy. "So we wait here, steal a little food from the kitchen, and wait for the search to wind down. In a household as big as this, we should be able to pass unnoticed for a few days." Sitting back on his haunches, the boy let out a long sigh. It was clear Sully wasn't pleased to hear this, but having nothing more intelligent to offer, he remained silent. A movie night, maybe. I thought it was a thought without knowing how things work. I'm excited about my amateur autopsy club. I joined Wednesday's open mic. That's very funny, Harry. Very funny. Yeah, we can do another movie night, Bear. I have to decide the movie beforehand because the way that we have to do the movies now is a pain in the butt. But it's worth doing. I just need to know beforehand that we're going to do a movie so that we can prepare whatever movie it is going to be. But yeah, we might even do some story game nights. I know, Bear, I know you're not much into the games, but we might do a couple story game nights for the folks who are a fan of the games. I need to prepare my server for a show. Yeah, Matty? Alright, where was I? We got another 11 minutes. Borik awoke with a gulp of breath, his heart pounding in his chest. It was still dark. No, he corrected himself as he spied a bit of light entering through a crack in the roof line. It's still dark in this attic. He had been dreaming of a time when he and his brother had been playing in the palace as children, using the so-called secret passages that were used by servants to move unseen between different suites. The boys had split up, and Borik had become lost. He had waited a long, lonely time for his Uncle Jimmy to come looking for him, Boric smiled as he remembered. Erlond had been more upset of the two. Moving to peer through the tiny crack at the silver courtyard, he could see. Boric had little doubt it was much the same now. Erlon must think me dead, he muttered to himself. Then he realized he was alone. The boy, Sully, was gone. Boric patted around in the dark for the knife and found it where he left it. Feeling only slightly better for the presence of the little indifferent weapon, he wondered what the boy could be up to. Perhaps he figured to bargain for his own life in exchange for knowledge of the whereabouts of a certain red-haired slave. Boric felt close to panic. If the boy had indeed tried to bargain for his own safety, both were as good as dead. Forcing himself to calmness, he again peered through the little crack. It was nearly sunrise, and already the governor's household was busy, with servants hurrying between outbuildings, the kitchen, the main house. Still, there was nothing to suggest other than normal morning activities. No armed men were inside, no shouting voices would be heard. Boric sat back and thought. The boy might not be terribly educated, but he was not stupid. No doubt he knew his own life was forfeit if anyone learned of his involvement in the escape with the escaped slave. And he was most likely hiding in another part of town, or perhaps even on a ship heading out of the city, working as a common seaman. Always a hearty eater, Boric felt a stomach knot. He had never truly been hungry before in his life, and he didn't care for the feeling. He had been too miserable while traveling to Durban to dwell much on his hunger. It was merely one of many afflictions, but now, with his sunburn turned to a deep reddish tan and his strength almost returned in full, he was very aware of his empty stomach. He wondered if he could slip out into the early morning bustle, and decided against trying. Red-headed slaves over 6 feet tall were certainly not common in this city, and he would probably be caught before he got within 100 paces of the kitchen. As if fate conspired to torment him, a familiar odor came wafting in on the morning breeze. The kitchen cooked bacon and ham for the governor's household. Boric's mouth began to water, and he sat for a miserable minute thinking of breakfast cakes and honey, boiled eggs, fruit with cream, hot slabs of ham, steaming fresh bread, and pots of coffee. Well, I just mean we haven't done any sort of games on Twitch in a while, and we have a few story ones that we haven't finished. So yeah, maybe we could do Excalibur. I don't know if we have it. I think we do. If we have Excalibur, we could do Excalibur, I think. Where was I? No good can come from this, he scolded himself, forcing back from the crack. Hunkering down in the dark, he attempted to discipline his mind away from the torment of hunger. All he needed to do was wait for nightfall, and then he could steal into the kitchen and nick some food. Yes, that's all he needed to do. Wait. Boric discovered that, like hunger, waiting was not to his liking. He would lay back for a time, then cross over to the crack in the roof, peer through, and wonder how much time had passed. Once he even dozed for a while, and was disappointed to discover that, judging from the nearly unchanged shadow angles, only minutes had passed, when he had hoped for hours. He returned to his place of resting, a section of the attic where the floor seemed a little less uncomfortable than the rest of the floor. More likely due to his imagination than any real difference, and he waited, and he was hungry. No, he corrected himself, he was ravenous. More time passed, and again he dozed. Then, to break the routine, he practiced some stretching exercises a Hadati warrior had once taught him and Erlon, designed to keep muscles loose and toned at times when there was no room for sword practice or other rigors of common warcraft. He moved one way, then another, balancing tension and relaxation, To his astonishment, he discovered that not only did the exercise take his mind off his stomach, they made him feel better and calmer. For the better part of 4 hours, Boric sat near the crack, observing the coming and going of those in the governor's courtyard. Several times, soldiers running messages hurried through Boric's field of vision. He considered if he could stay hidden here long enough, assuming he could steal food and not get caught. In a few more days, they would assume that he'd somehow slipped out of their grasp. At that time, he might be able to sneak aboard an outbound ship. Then what? He thought upon that prickly issue. It would do little good to return home, even if he could find a way. Father would only send fast riders south to Kesh, with warnings to Erlon to be cautious. No doubt he could be no more cautious than he already was. With Boric's disappearance, Uncle Jimmy was sure to assume the worst and count Boric dead. It would be a gifted assassin to win past Earl James's notice. As a boy, Jimmy had rightly been counted among the counted something of a legend in the city. When years younger than Boric's age, he had already been a master thief and counted an adult by the mockers. No mean feat that, Boric thought. No, he whispered to himself. I must get to Erlon as quickly as possible. Too much time will be lost if I return home first. Then he wondered if perhaps he should attempt to reach Stardock. The magician could do astonishing things and perhaps could provide him with a faster way to reach Kesh. But Jimmy had already mentioned Pug leaving the day after they departed, so he was already gone. And 2 Keshian magicians he left in charge were not men who appeared to Boric as likely candidates for generous help. There was something undecidedly off-putting about both of them, and they were Keshian. Who knows how far this Lord Fire's plotting reaches, Boric considered. Bobby, hello! Just wanted to pop in and say hello. I was watching the TV show I am consuming at the moment, saw the tavern was open and got cats chilling with me, picked up a couple at the beginning of the month and the local Humane Society, picked up a 10-year-old tuxedo and an almost 2-year-old tortoiseshell. So all in all, I am pretty great as usual. Well, that's wonderful. Absolutely exceptional. Milo has finally started willingly and regularly cuddling with the lady, so she is happy with... Well, I don't know about bribing you, Matty, but again, there have been a few story games that we've started and not completed, and there's a new Black Myth game on the horizon. Who knows when, but I know some folk weren't here when we went through Black Myth Wukong. So maybe a second run through there. Yeah, Fallout 3, we could do a Fallout night where you guys make the decisions on behalf of the character we're playing, you know. Did I lose Dogmeat? That's not terribly surprising. But yeah, we might do some Twitch only stuff in the summer here with everybody off, so that there is some more to do. We'll see. We shall see. As long as I'm keeping up with stories elsewhere, then it should be a problem. And perhaps some more group things with the lady and I. We'll have to see. Who lost Dogmeat? When we played Fallout 3 sometime back. It's been a long time ago by now. But we played Fallout 3 sometime back and Dogmeat disappeared. I'm open to joining if you need to. Yeah, absolutely, Matty. If there's a world I love more than Midkemia, it's the Fallout. I love Fallout. I've not been overly impressed with the television show, but I do like some of what they're doing with the television show. I guess I love Fallout. I've been playing Fallout since the first game back on PC. I've been playing Fallout. I love Fallout. I love Fallout, period. It is absolutely... Fallout is one of my favorite series out there. Like, it's truly... Like, there are a lot of, like, post-apocalyptic or dystopian stories. There are none that are as masterfully done as Fallout is. Fallout is amazing. Now, don't get me wrong, Tactics had its issues, and Fallout 76 was a garbage pile. But there are a great many wonderful things about Fallout that are worth noting, and uh, we may go back and start that playthrough back up for Fallout 3 again. I wanted to walk in and shoot Father in the face. I'm up to 10, so I don't lose my streak. Well, I won't torture you too much, Bear. You can stay in long enough to keep your streak, and then you can you can bail, and I won't take it personally. I love that. Me too. I started with Wasteland, so when Fallout came out, I was hooked. Hell, I even enjoyed Brotherhood of Steel. Yeah, Tactics or Brotherhood of Steel. My boys love Fallout. It's such a wonderful story game. Like, and the world is so expansive. There's so much stuff to find. Like, the ambient storytelling is spectacular. That's the reason why I love games like Elden Ring and Dark Souls. Fallout is a little bit more on the nose, but I love games that have ambient storytelling that make the world kind of feel lived in, you know? I play pretty vicious first playthrough on all my first runs. I mean, it's almost more fun to do it that way. Just blow everything up as you're going through, right? Doing good karma runs doesn't seem like the more common thing to do. All right. I'm gonna get let's run ads real quick. We got ads to run, so let's go ahead and run them, and then we'll continue talking. It's always worth coming in. Well, and if we're playing certain games, then I can chat a lot more, and we can just have chats during those things. Elden Ring irritates me, and I quit. I know that like the difficulty curve of Souls games, like it just turns a lot of people off. I love the Souls games so much. And again, it's because of the ambient storytelling. Don't be wrong, I get very frustrated with how hard the games are. I get very frustrated with how hard they are. But I love the hit of when you have completed something that's that difficult. And I really love the storytelling in Dark Souls and in Elden Ring. Oh, Bobby, thank you for the resub. I appreciate that. Oh, I'm sorry, Bobby. I thought that you already had your Prime sub in. Sorry, I saw the Prime thing next to your name, and I thought you already were in. I apologize. That was my fault. The boys also like the Assassin's Creed games. The lady loves Assassin's Creed. Like, Assassin's Creed is one of her favorite all-time franchises. We like all the way up to like Rogue and Black Flag. Some of the more recent games were not very good. Valhalla was not very good. Odyssey was not very good. And the most recent one was dreadful. Because the Assassin's Creed games are built on their story and their historical rigor. And like the last 3 or 4 games just didn't really care about that. They just didn't care about being rigorous. They didn't care about having that like historical rigor and accuracy that makes the games exceptional. And yeah, I was really excited for Assassin's Creed Valhalla when it came out. I played all the way through it on Twitch for everyone, and we did all of the things. Now it is the time I do need to be off for some sleep. It was great to get the extra hour story time. Thank you, Castle, Talbot family. Stay safe. I'll see you all on Sunday. I will see you on Sunday, Frost. I appreciate you helping to tend the board. Much love, my friend. Assassin's Creed is one of my favorites, but I played the latest games, not the earlier ones with Enzo. Oh, I mean, it is hard to go back and play them because it's hard to find them well constructed. Because like you basically have to play them on their original consoles, or play them on like PlayStation Plus. But good night, Frost. Rest well, brother. We'll see you on Sunday, or maybe a little bit sooner than that. And even like Assassin's Creed is in general like it's a fun game to play. The story in Valhalla was so boring to me, and again, like you guys always know that I'm not. When I say that something is bad, I'm not trying to poo-poo on it so that you don't like it. If you like a thing that I say is bad or that is objectively bad, then you're allowed to like those things, and I'm happy for you for liking them. I'm not trying to ruin anybody's enjoyment of anything. Bobby, the one thing I was going to say is that if you haven't played the early Assassin's Creed games, you should find a way to go back and play them. Odyssey is the best of the three most recent ones, Matty. But again, like one of the things that makes Assassin's Creed good is its historical rigor, right? Odyssey went way too far in the fantasy to really be a good Assassin's Creed game. Odyssey and Origins both did this. Like they went so far into the fantasy that it really got away from the Assassin's Creed formula. And again, Odyssey is probably is the better of the three most recent ones. But Valhalla was terrible. Valhalla was dreadful. I was so excited for Valhalla, and it was dreadfully boring. So much so, I paid for the premium version of Assassin's Creed Valhalla and did not go back and play any of the DLCs. That's how bad it was for me. Like, everybody's like, oh, but the Siege of Paris was so good, and the Ireland DLC was so good. I don't care. Like, the first half of the game was pretty good. The last half of the game was a dreadful slog. It was so dreadful. And it's the same thing with Assassin's Creed Shadows. Like Assassin's Creed Shadows 1, I've not played it. I've not picked up. I've not had any faith in Ubisoft for a while. But Shadows had the same problem with repetition and nothing really unique. And then they had all of this integration of the shop and the purchasable content and all of that. It just wasn't very good. Yeah, like Shadows got so far away from the foundation of Assassin's Creed that it just wasn't like ignoring all of like the historical inaccuracies and how far they got away from again the rigor of history that made Assassin's Creed what it is. Like what made the early Assassin's Creed games good and what made them appealing was that they layered it in a way that was like, hey, this could have happened, right? Like it was fun because it's like this could have been a thing. Like this could have happened. Like George Washington could have been a part of this assassins thing. Like that's what made it fun. And they've just completely gotten away from that. Like all of the stuff that they did in Valhalla was bad, and Odyssey was bad, and Origins was bad, and Shadows was bad. Now I will say Origins and Odyssey were much better constructed as games. Like the ship stuff in Odyssey was really interesting, and there was a lot of things they did that made the games more fun. But yeah, Syndicate was pretty good, Matty. The last ones that the lady and I really enjoyed were Rogue and Black Flag. Rogue and Black Flag are probably like the best out of all of the games as far as combination of story and of gameplay.
I like each of the characters for their own thing. 3 was okay. With Connor.
Yeah.
That was kind of... He was kind of whiny.
Well, that's what I was saying. The Black Flag and Rogue are probably the two best overall games.
Well, but Ezio was great. He got 3 of his own games.
Well, yeah, but I mean in the early Ezio games. Well, no, who's in the first one? Who's the character in the first one?
Altair.
Altair, yeah. The Altair and the first Ezio game were very formulaic because they had to be, right? Like, it was just kind of the same sort of thing over and over again, nothing really surprising. It really depended on the storytelling to carry it. And it was still fun, it was more open world than what you usually got, but it was very heavily dependent on the story. You had to have the good story. Maddie, you have a weak spot for any female characters, I think. I think that you just have a weakness and a blind spot for female characters, especially female leads. Origins ending upset. I never even got to the end of Origins. After I played Valhalla, I tried Origins and I tried Odyssey, and I got through some of them, and that's why I'll openly admit that the gameplay in Odyssey and Origins is more fun. But I had again, I one of the things that made me fall in love with Assassin's Creed was the stories and and how much rigor they put into the historical accuracy to make the things feel plausible. And they just got so far away from that. If they ever went back to it, I would be a huge fan, but I'm not sure the word characters was necessary there either. What do you mean, Herring? I don't know. Sometimes I just ramble. That's why I had a hard time going back to play the older games as they play different. Yeah, and they like the first three games are very heavily dependent on the story, and the story is exceptional. But the gameplay is a lot more rigid. It's not as loose as the later games. Whereas, like in Valhalla and in Odyssey, I felt like the gameplay was too loose, right? Oh, that Matty is obsessed with female characters, but he is like that's the thing is Matty is more obsessed with fictional women than he is with real women. That is a strict observation of the thing. I like a little bit of loose gameplay, but if it's too loose and there's not enough story, I need the environment to tell a lot of story. So this is weird. So like I like Dark Souls 1 and 3. Dark Souls 2 I do not like, specifically for this reason. Dark Souls 2 has very loose gameplay. Rude, Matty can hear you. Yeah, I know, Matty, that's why I said it. But Dark Souls 2 was so loose that you couldn't solve anything. You couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't get anything done because it was just very poorly constructed. Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, Sekiro, and Elden Ring, the gameplay is really loose, but there's a lot of ambient storytelling. Like you can every 10 feet that you walk, you can find something that has something to do with a side quest or a story, and it builds upon the world. I haven't played Crimson Desert yet, Bobby, but I've heard that Crimson Desert is the same way. Wait, say again? You get to what? Oh, befriend cats. To be fair, I sometimes feel like most of my girlfriends were fictional. Is that because of the story arc of the thing? Also, all my closest friends are women. That's true, but also all of your closest friends you've never met, so they're almost as good as being fictional.
Wow, stop.
The Pearl Abyss has been listening and adjusting the game to pleasure. Well, that's good. That's good. I loved Black Desert. The lady and I only played for a little bit, but I loved Black Desert. So I have confidence that Crimson Desert would be good, and I like Lords of the Fallen, which is a very similar game. So I'd be willing to play it. I feel like I'm having a mental break now. Hello, thanks. Obviously, I'm just teasing, but you get what I'm saying, Matty. Most of the women who you deal with are on a screen, and the ones that you meet in real life, for some reason, tend to try to sell you off into servitude somewhere. Yeah, I try to tell people this all the time. I am in person exactly how I am. Or when you see me through the portals, I am exactly this way in real life. Like, I would not say something behind your back that I would not say to your face. I find it weird when people are two-faced like that. Like sometimes if I'm like the lady and I will have conversations and I'll be a little bit more in-depth and frank with her than I would be with somebody to their face. But not saying something that I wouldn't say otherwise. yeah, I don't have the capacity in me to be a different person online than I am in real life. And a lot of people have had hard times being friends with me because I I don't coddle my friends. If you are a friend of mine and you have a problem and it's very clearly a problem, I'm not going to mince words with you, and I will tell you directly this is the problem, and if I were you, this is how I would fix it. And some people just don't like that sort of friendness, and I prefer people be like that with me too. Like if you notice there's a problem, like Bear calls me out all the time for being late all the time, and I appreciate it because I am late very often. I get so caught up in other things that I'm doing that I end up being late for other things. Like I'm constantly running and playing catch up. It's just how it is. To a degree, Bobby, I don't know that I'm necessarily a fixer as much as I prefer frankness. I prefer to be frank with people, to have people be frank with me. I try not to be unkind. Try to be conscious of whether or not I'm being unkind. But I prefer things be said frankly. Yeah, and it's I don't like being late. I like one of the things that I will the hill I will die on is that I don't enjoy constantly being behind on everything. But also, the lady and I have taken on so many projects that I'm constantly running behind. That's the. But I am ex-military, and that's a me problem. Well, and it's like my grandfather was former military, and my father was former military. My dad was always late to everything, but my grandfather beat it into me that if you say you're going to be somewhere at a time, you should either be there on time or early. And in my head, I'm like, oh, I can get this thing, and this thing done before I have to do this thing that I've scheduled to do. And then I will get buried in those other things, and by the time I realize that I am late, I'm already late. And it's a problem I'm trying desperately to adjust and fix so that I'm not always late. But I tease Una all the time for coffee. Yeah. Most of my closest friends, fair enough. uh, you know what's funny, Bobby, is that I have alarms too. I set alarms, but sometimes I will leave my phone in the other room where I cannot hear it, or set it face down by accident, and it'll be on Do Not Disturb, and then I don't hear the alarms. So I'm dreadful with this, and it's one of the biggest problems I need to work on. Is that I need to be better about getting my projects done so that I'm on time, especially since the tavern is growing uncontrollably. With how things are growing, I need to be more on time and more diligent, because the reality is, um, the tavern is growing, and I need to have books done. I need to have events being on time, and as of right now, I'm not equipped for how the tavern is growing to capitalize on it and make it so that we can do all the projects we want to do. Okay, all right, I'm gonna get back into stories because I promised you guys we'd get to the end of this, and we've got about 11 pages left, so let's get in there. In that time, I sounded in rebar as well. See, that's the thing. It's like I can't have downtime. I always have to be getting something done. So if there's something in between now and when I have something else to do, I put things in there, and that's why I always end up late, because I'm overly optimistic with what I can get done in the time I have. Okay, where was I? Looking up from his musings, he realized that night was falling. The evening meal was being prepared in the kitchen, and the smell of meat roasting over a spit was nearly enough to make him mad. In a few hours, he told himself, just relax and let the time pass. It won't be long. In just a few more hours, the servants will be in their own beds, and then it will be time to steal out, and... Abruptly, the trap moved. No, shh. Shut up. The trap moved, and Borik's heart raced as he readied the knife to defend himself. The trap raised up, and the slight figure pulled himself into the trap. Sully Abdul said, "Master." Borik almost laughed in relief. "Here." The boy scurried over and said, "I feared you might have been found, though I suspected you were wise enough to stay here and await my return." Borik said, "Where did you go?" Sully carried a sack that Borik could barely make out in the gloom. "I stole out before dawn, master. As you were sleeping soundly, I chose not to disturb you. Since then, I have been many places." He opened the bag and brought forth a loaf of bread. Borik tore off a hunk and ate without having to be asked twice. Then the boy handed over a block of cheese and a small skin of wine. Through his full mouth, Borik asked, "Where did you get this?" The boy sighed as if being back in the attic was a relief. "I have had a most perilous day, my kind master. I fled with the idea of perhaps leaving you, then considered what fate has offered. Should I be caught, I will be sold as a slave because of my incompetent theft. If I am linked to your escape, I will be dead. So what are the risks? By hiding until you are caught and hoping you will not speak the name Sully Abdul before they kill you, I wager a death sentence against the possibility of regaining life I had before these recent events of turn, which upon consideration is not a very grand thing. Or I can risk that poor life and return to help my young master again to the day you return to your father, to reward your faithful servant." Borik laughed. "And what reward shall you have if we get safely back to Krondor?" With a solemnity that almost made Borik laugh again, the boy said, "I wish to become your servant, master. I wish to be known as the prince's body servant." Hang on a second, guys. You sound like me, rather honestly, over lying that annoys me so bad I'd be alone before I deal with the BS. I am the same online, a small potato. Well, fair enough, Sonomi. And the lady and I are both that way. We're both very frank and we prefer to be that way. Apparently I only needed one. Welcome back, Nilu. It's good to see you. I hope your nap was well. Borik said, "But what about gold, or perhaps a trade?" The boy shrugged. "What do I know of trade, master? I would be a poor merchant and perhaps be ruined within a year, and gold, I would only spend it. But to be the servant of a great man is to be close to greatness in a way. Do you not see?" Borik's laughter died in his throat before it was voice. He realized, this boy of the street, the position of a great man's servant was the highest attainment he could imagine. Borik thought about the countless and nameless bodies that had surrounded him all his life. The servants who had brought this young son of the royal house his clean clothes in the morning, who washed his back, who prepared his meals each day. He doubted he knew more than one or two by name, and perhaps only a dozen by sight. They were a part of the landscape, no more significant than a chair or a table. Borik shook his head and sighed. "What is it, master?" Borik said, "I don't know if I can promise you a position that close to me personally, but I will guarantee that you'll have a place in my household, and that you will rise as high as your talents will take you. Is that fair enough?" The boy bowed with a solemn formality. "My master is most generous." Then the boy pulled some sausage from the sack. "I knew you would be generous, kind master, so I returned with many things." "Hold a moment, Sula. Where did you get all this? The boy said, in one of the rooms below, a woman's sleeping chamber. From its look, I found the comb with turquoise set into the silver, left behind by a thoughtless maid when the quarters were last vacated. I sold this to a man in the bazaar. I took the coins he gave me and purchased many things. Not to worry. I moved along and purchased each item from a different merchant, ensuring no one knew what business I was upon. Here. He handed Boric a shirt. It was nothing fancy, but obviously a significant improvement over his rough homespun the slavers had given him. Then the boy passed over a pair of cotton trousers, the kind worn by sailors throughout the bitter sea. I could not find boots, master, that I could purchase, yet have enough left for food. Boric smiled at the boy. You did well. I can go without boots. If we're to pass as sailors, bare feet will not bring us any notice. But we'll have to sneak into the harbour at night and hope no one sees this red hair of mine under a lamp. I have taken care of that, master. The boy handed over a vial of some liquid with a comb. I have this from a man who sells such to old whores down in the waterfront. He claims it will not wash out nor run with water. It is called oil of Macassar. Boric opened the vial and his nose was assaulted by a pungent, oily odor. Better work. Smell will have people marking me. That will pass, according to the merchant. You better put it in my hair. I wouldn't want to pour it over half my head. There's barely enough light for you to see what you're doing. The boy moved behind him and ungently rubbed the vial's contents into the prince's hair. He then combed it through many, many times over, spreading it as evenly as possible. With your sunburn, Highness, you will look every inch the Durban sailor. And what of you? Said Boric. I have trousers and a shirt in the bag too, my master. Suli Abdul is known for his beggar's robes. It is large enough for me to hide limbs when I play at being deformed. Boric laughed as the boy continued to work on his hair. He sighed in relief as he thought, just maybe we do have a chance of getting out of this trap. I did some art today. I'm going to try and color it in. Huzzah! It's excellent. I always get excited when I hear that you guys are working on things, because making things, whatever thing you may be making things is one of the most exceptional things that you can do. There are a great many folk who are ready and willing to take away from the world, but not a great many folk who are ready and willing to put something back into it. So when I hear that you guys are going about making things, I consider that to be a very exciting news. Trousers, not again! Rick made me promise to say trousers, so that's why we've got to do trousers every time. Just before dawn, a sailor and his young brother ventured into the streets near the governor's estate. As Boric had surmised, there was little activity near the governor's home. And it was logical to assume the fugitive was unlikely to be anywhere near the heart of Durban's authority. Which is why they made back into the slave pens. They made back toward the slave pens. If the governor's house was an unlikely place for the fugitives to hide, the slave quarters were even less likely. Boric was not entirely comfortable being in the rich part of town, as the presence of two obviously shabby figures near the residences of the wealthy and powerful was in and of itself sufficient to bring unwarranted scrutiny upon them. When they were but a block from the slave quarters, Boric halted. Upon the wall of a storage shed was a newly hung broadside. Painted by a skilled craftsman, it proclaimed red letters a reward. Sully said, Master, what does it say? Boric read aloud. Murder most foul, it says. It says that I killed the wife of the governor. Boric's face went pale. Gods and demons. He quickly read the entire broadside and then said, They say a kingdom-born house slave molested and killed his mistress, then fled into the city. They put a reward of 1,000 gold IQ on me. Boric could not believe his eyes. The boy's eyes widened. 1,000? That is a fortune. Boric tried to calculate the worth. It came to roughly 5,000 kingdom sovereigns, or the income of a small estate for a year. A staggering sum indeed for the capture, dead or alive, of a runaway slave. But one who had murdered the city's foremost lady of society. Boric shook his head in pained realization. The swine murdered his own wife to give the guards a reason to kill me on sight, he whispered. Sully shrugged. It is no surprise when you understand that the governor has a mistress who demands more and more from him. To put aside his first wife, to marry his mistress, after an appropriate period of mourning, of course, will ease two sources of concern for him, keeping his mistress and Lord Fire happy. And while astoundingly beautiful, the mistress would do well to consider the future of one who marries a man who killed his first wife to make her his second. When she becomes older and less fair of face. Boric looked around. We better keep moving. The city will be at full speed within the hour. Sully seemed unable to stifle the incessant chatter, except under the most dire circumstances. Boric didn't attempt to shut him up, deciding the garrulous lad would look less suspicious than one who was sullenly glancing in all directions. Now, master, we know how the governor convinced the three to help apprehend you. The three and the imperial governor have little love amongst them, but they have less love for slaves who murder their lawful lords. Boric could only agree. But he found the governor's means to achieve that reaction chilly. Even if he hadn't loved the woman, he had lived with her for some number of years. Wasn't there any compassion in him? Wondered Boric. What are you doing, goofball? What are you doing? Rounding a corner, they saw the side of the slave pens. Because the auction had been cancelled, the pens were especially crowded. Boric turned his face toward Sully and moved steadily, but not so hurried as to attract attention. To any guards who might be looking, he was simply a sailor speaking to a boy. A pair of guards walked around the corner and approached them. Instantly, Sully said, No, you and I would have a full share this voyage. I am grown now. I do the work of a man. It was not my fault the nets fouled. It was Rasta's fault. He was drunk. Boric hesitated only an instant, then replied in a gruff voice as he could muster. I said I would consider it. Be silent or I'll leave you behind, little brother, or not. See how you like another month working in Mother's kitchen while I'm gone. The guards gave the pair a quick glance and then continued on. Boric resisted the temptation of looking to see if the guards were paying attention. He would know quickly enough if they became suspicious. Then Boric turned another corner and collided with a man. For a brief instant, the stranger looked into his eyes with a threatening mutter. Then his alcohol-laden breath in Boric's face. Then the man's expression turned from drunken irritation to murderous hatred. You! It was Salea, reaching for the large dagger in his belt of his robe. Reacting instantly, Boric put his fingers against the point and drove it as hard as he could into Salea's chest. Right below the bottommost ribs, his fingers smashed into the nerves there. Salea's breath was driven from his lungs. As he struggled to catch his breath, Salea's face turned crimson and his eyes went unfocused. Boric then struck hard into his throat and pulled him forward. smashed down as hard as he could, managed on the back of the slaver's neck, at the base of the skull. Boric had him by the arm before the slaver hit the ground, and if any more guards chanced to glance their way, a moment after the encounter they would see nothing more suspicious than two friends, a man and boy, helping home a friend who had too much to drink. Halfway down the street they came to an alley and turned into it, dragging the now unconscious man along like so many sacks of rotten vegetables. Boric deposited him in a pile of refuse and quickly had his purse off. A fair number of Keshian kingdom coins weighed down the heavy leather pouch and went into Boric's shirt. He removed the belt knife and sheath, wishing the slaver had carried a sword as well. As he hesitated as to what to do next, Suli stripped Celia of his rings, 4 from his hands and 2 from his ears. Then the boy took off the slaver's boots and hid them. "If we leave anything of value behind, it will look suspicious." Stepping back, he said, "You can kill him now, master." Boric halted. Kill him? Suddenly it registered. He had dreamed of revenging himself upon this swine, but all those visions had involved killing him in a duel and bringing him before a magistrate on charges. "He's unconscious." "All the better, master. There will be no struggle." Seeing Boric hesitated, he added, "Quickly, master, before someone chances upon us. The city stairs in this alley will be travelled shortly. Someone is bound to find him soon, if he is not dead." He let the consequences of that go unspoken. Steeling himself, Boric withdrew the knife he had taken from Salea and held it. But then he was confounded by a complete unexpected concern. How to do it? Should he drive the knife into the man's stomach, cut its source, or just... Suli said, "If you wish not to kill a dog, master, let your servant do it for you. But you must do it now. Please, master." The thought of letting the boy kill was even more repugnant to Boric, so he pulled his arm back and drove the knife into the slaver's throat. It was not the slightest movement from Salea. Boric stared in astonishment, then with a bitter laugh said, "He was already dead. The second blow must have broken his neck." Boric shook his head in astonishment. The punch to the chest and the throat was the one of dirty fighting tricks taught to me by James. Not the sort of thing the noble sons usually learn, but one which I am glad to have been taught. I didn't know the blow to the neck would be lethal. Not caring for explanations, Suli said, "Let us go, now, master, please." He tugged on Boric's tunic, and the prince let the boy pull him out of the alley. When he was cleared of the sight of the dead slaver, Boric turned his thoughts away from revenge and back towards escape. Putting his hand on Suli's shoulder, he said, "Which way to the harbour?" Suli didn't hesitate. He pointed down the long street and said, "That way." "Lead on, then," was Boric's answer, and the beggar boy led the prince through the city, ready to kill him. A city ready to kill them both at a moment's notice. "That one," said Boric, indicating a small sailboat tied to a relatively lonely dock. It was a pinnace, the sort used as a tender to run to and from larger ships in the harbour, carrying passengers, messages, and very small cargo. But if handled right, it would do well upon the open sea as long as the weather remained fair. As the entire fleet of Durban's pirates had put out the day before to intercept the murdering slave, there was almost no activity in the harbour. But that condition wouldn't last long. Boric was certain, as there were common citizens who had no concern with the hunt for the murder of the governor's wife. Soon the docks would be busy and the theft of the boat would be observed. Boric looked about and pointed to a coil of old filthy rope that lay nearby. So he picked it up and slung the wet, foul-smelling coil over his shoulder. Boric then picked up discarded wooden crate, pushing the open slats closed. "Follow me," he said. No one paid attention to two sailors walking purposely toward the small boat at the end of the dock. Boric put the crate down and jumped into the boat, quickly untying the bowline. He turned to find that Suli standing in the rear of the boat, with an open look of perplexion on his face. Bless you, my love. Master, what do I do? Boric groaned. You've never sailed before. I have never been on a boat before in my life, master. Boric said, bend down and look like you're doing something. I don't want anyone noticing a confused sailor boy on board. When we're underway, just do what I tell you. Boric quickly had the boat pushed free from the dock, and after a fitful start, the sail was up and the boat was moving steadily towards the harbour mouth. Boric gave Sully a quick list of terms and some duties, and when he was done, he said, Come, take the triller. The boy moved to sit where the prince had, and Boric gave him the triller and the boom hawser. Keep it pointed that way, the prince instructed, pointing towards the harbour mouth. Well, I see what we have here. Boric went to the front of the boat and pulled the small boat's locker out of the foredeck. The box was unlocked, and inside he found little of value. A single sail, a rusty scaling knife left over from when the boat had belonged to an honest fisherman, and some frayed line he doubted any fish caught on that line would be big enough for more than bait. There was also a small wooden bucket bound in iron, used as a bailer or to pull up water to keep the catch wet. But when this boat was used for fishing, a rusty lantern without oil was his only other discovery. Turning to face the boy who studied the sail and held the triller with fierce concentration in his face, Boric said, I don't suppose you have any more bread or cheese left? With a look of sincere apology, the boy said, No, master. One thing about this change in his circumstances, Boric commented to himself. Hunger was becoming a way of life. I'm not quite at the end. I just want to make sure I haven't missed anyone. But we are coming up on the end. We only got a couple pages left. We're going to make it all the way through the chapter before the end, friends. The wind was a brisk nor'easter, and the panache was fastest in the broad beam reach. So Boric turned her north by northwest as he left the harbour mouth. The boy looked terrified and exhilarated. He had been babbling for most of the way through the harbour, obviously his means of dealing with his fear. But as they exited the harbour, with no more than a casual glance by the deck crew of a large, lantern-rigged caravel, the boy's fear had vanished. Boric had sailed intentionally close to the ship, as if unconcerned by its presence, but rather irritated by the need to sail around it. Now, with the harbour mouth behind them, Boric said, Can you climb? The boy nodded, and Boric said, From the front, and mind the sail. Climb the mast to that ring up there and hang on. Look in all directions and tell me what you see. The boy shinned up the mast like one born to it, and gripped the observational ring at the top of the small mast. It swayed dramatically with the additional weight at the top, but the boy didn't seem to mind. Yelling down, he said, Master, there are small white things along that way. He pointed eastward, then swept his hand toward the north. Sails. I think so, master. They mark the horizon for as far as I can see. And what about to the north? I think I see some sails there too, master. Boric swore. What of to the west? The boy squirmed and shouted. Yes, there are some there too. Boric considered his choices. He had thought to escape, to run on, a small trading port to the west, or, if needs be, Limeth, a modest city high up in the southern peninsula, below the Straits of Darkness. But if they had some pickets established just against that choice, he would have to put out farther north, perhaps reaching the Free Cities eventually, if he didn't starve first. or brave the straits. This time of the year, the straits were only moderately dangerous, unlike the winter when they were impassable, save for an exceptionally brave or stupid sailor. Boric signaled for Sully to climb down, and when the boy was near, the prince said, "I think we'll have to run to the northwest to get around the pickets." He glanced at the sun and said, If we steer away from those western pickets, they're sure to come running. If we hold steady course, as if we're simply going about our business, we may fool them." He looked down. "See how the water changes colour from here?" He pointed. "To there." The boy nodded. "That's because this is a deep channel, and that is a coral reef. This boat has a very shallow draft, so we can slip above those reefs. But if that big ship we saw at the harbour, it would bottom out here and crash. We must be cautious. Some of these reefs are too near the surface, even for our small boat. But if we are alert, we can avoid them." The boy looked at Boric with fear in his eyes. He obviously felt overwhelmed by what the prince was saying and didn't understand. "That's all right," said Boric. "I'll tell you what to look for if we have to flee." He glanced at the distant west horizon, where he could barely see a single dot of white on the surface of blue-green. "Anything in close to the shore will have just as shallow a draft as we have, and probably be faster." Checking the luff of the sail to make sure he was at the proper angle to the wind for maximum speed, Boric said, "We just keep watching that white speck on the western horizon, Sully, and tell me if it starts to get bigger." With concentration that bordered on single-minded, the boy hung over the windward side of the boat, using the angle of the crest as means to sit at the highest perch possible, short of climbing the mast again. For the better part of an hour, the white spot appeared to neither shrink nor grow. Then suddenly it was heading straight for them. "Master," said the boy, "they're coming." Boric turned the craft, attempting to get maximum angle to the wind for speed, but the sail slowly grew. It was a faster craft. "Damn," he swore. "They'll overtake us if we keep running." Sully shouted, "Master, another!" As if summoned by the first ship to intercept the panache, a second sail appeared upon the northern horizon. "We're cut off!" yelled Boric. He swung the tiller hard about, cursing himself for a fool. Of course, the guards at the harbour mouth had been lax. They were instructed to intercept only those that looked like the runaway, and could clearly see that the two sailors were neither red-headed. But the ship on the picket would only know a sail was on the horizon. They would intercept, and Boric wanted nothing to do with close inspection. In Durban, he might have tried to bluff his way out with a contrived story, but out here, with freedom so close, he wasn't going to chance another capture. To be caught was to be killed, he reminded himself. Boric looked about and said, "Come here!" The boy hurried to Boric's side, and the prince gave the triller and the boom line. "Hold on this course." Boric moved quickly to the front of the boat and took the second sail from the locker. He attached it to the front of the mast, but didn't raise it. "Hurry, master!" cried the boy. "Not now. It would only slow us down. We're at the wrong angle." Boric returned to the triller. The two other boats were turning to give chase, and now Boric could make them out. The northern interceptor was a large two-masted galleon, fast running before the wind, but slow to maneuver, and with a deep draught. He knew the captain wouldn't follow him into the reefs, but the first boat they had seen was a fore and after rig, sleek-looking sloop, newly founded upon the bitter sea over the last 20 years. They were favored by pirates working over the shoals of the western coast. Faster than the panache in a light wind, they were more maneuverable and had almost as shallow a draft. Boric's only hope was to get past the sloop and put on more canvas, to get into the shallowest part of the water as possible. Only in a very heavy wind in a broad reach could this panache possibly outrun that boat? The larger boat moved to cut off Borik's smaller craft, and he eased off the triller, turning more and more upwind. Then he jibbed his boat and left the galleon, wallowing close-hauled into the wind, its speed evaporating like water on a hot stone. The sloop turned and cut him off as he sailed back towards the reef, and Borik spilled wind from his sail. Letting the captain of the larger boat think he had cut off the fugitives, Borik concentrated as it was going to be a very close thing. Any miscalculation would leave him either too much room between the sloop and the panache, so the larger boat could turn again and intercept him, or bring him too close, so that they could be grappled and boarded. Borik pulled hard on the triller as if attempting to turn back away once more, sailing just shy of directly into the eye of the wind. Was only point of sailing he was faster than the sloop in this slight breeze, but not by much, and if he attempted to stay that course he would end up sailing directly back to the galleon. Borik let the pursuing craft get near enough to make out the crew, nearly 30 unsavory-looking dogs, all armed with sword and pike. If there were archers on the boat, he thought to himself, we'll never make it alive. Then he surprised the crew of the sloop and Sully both by jibbing his boat directly towards the larger craft. Sully cried out and threw his arms before his face, expecting a collision. But rather than a crack of splitting timbers, the only sound above, the sound of the seas, with a loud oaths from sailors on the sloop, taken by surprise. The sloop's helmsman reacted to Borik as Borik hoped he would, turning his wheel hard. The sloop's captain curses filled the air. The helmsman was now steering away from the boat. They wanted to come alongside and grapple, and started to turn the wheel back, but the damage had been done. Borik's panache stood still, trembling in the teeth of the wind, then started moving slightly backwards. Like a dancer spinning on her heels, the boat swung away from the sloop, coming quickly around. The sound of the canvas snapping taut echoed across the waters, as the panache seemed to jump away, running before the wind. Astonished-looking sailors stood at the rail of the sloop with their mouths open. Then one made so bold as attempt to leap across the narrow gap between. He fell a few feet short of the stern of Borik's craft. Borik yelled, "Sully, come here!" The boys scampered to take the tiller from Borik, while the prince raced to the mast. The instant he was sure they were on running broad reach again, he hauled for the second sail aloft, making a crude spinnaker. He hoped it would give the panache just enough extra speed to stay away from the sloop. The captain of the sloop, swearing mightily, ordered his men to come about. Quickly the nimble boat turned and gave chase. Borik divided his attention forward and aft, watching to see if the larger boat was overtaking them, and then looking to see they stayed clear of the dangerous shoals. Sully sat with eyes wide with terror, listening as Borik shouted, "A little more starboard!" The boy yelled, "What, master?" He stared at the prince in confusion, not understanding the nautical terms. Borik yelled back, "More to the right!" Borik turned his attention back to the dangers ahead, and shouted to Sully, directing him first to the right, then left, then right again. As they steered the maddening course through the shoals, Borik glanced back and saw the larger boat had closed some distance, and he cursed. Even with the spinnaker, they were not moving fast enough. He yelled, "Turn towards the shore!" The boy reacted instantly, turning so hard Borik almost lost his footing. Borik looked for rocks just before the surface of the water, that they could avoid, but that would bring their pursuer to a nasty halt. As they moved closer to shore, the boat's up and downward movement became more pronounced as the ground swells moved toward the breaker line. The sound of the surf could be heard clearly. Borik pointed with one hand. "There! Steer there!" Praying to the goddess of luck, Boric said, "Let us hit that on the crest." As if the laughing lady had heard him, Boric felt the boat on the rise as they passed over the spot he had marked. Even so, as they started to feel the boat come down, a groan, tearing sound of the bottom scraping the rock could be heard, and a teeth-jarring vibration came up through the hull of the boat. Sully's face turned ashen as he crouched, holding on the tiller as if it were the only connection to life. Boric shouted, "Come left!" and the boy yanked upon the tiller. Again the sound of wood scraping over the rocks filled his ears, but the boat settled down through the trough and rose without further difficulty. Boric glanced back and saw the sloop heeling over the captain, gave the orders to his frantic crew to turn away from the shoals, too lethal for even his shallow craft. Boric gave a low whistle of relief. Turning his mind to what to do next, he signaled Sully to head slightly away from the coast, picking up speed as they moved out of the tide's pull and into the better angle away from the wind. The freshening breeze moved the boat along, and Boric could see the sloop fall farther behind with every minute as the captain had to stay outside the reef that now lay between the two boats. Boric lowered the makeshift spinnaker and took the triller from Sully. The boy grinned at him with an expression that was half delight, half terror. Perspiration soaked the lad's tunic, and Boric found himself wiping his drenched brow. Boric pointed the boat slowly upwind and could see the sloop's sail falling off even farther as the reef ran off towards the northwest. He laughed. Even with the headsail jib and the sloop's crew was running out, it was too late. By the time they rounded the reef, the pinnace would be so far ahead that they could be anywhere upon the sea. It would be nightfall before the distance could be made up, and Boric planned to be on being far away by nightfall. The next 2 hours passed uneventfully until Sully left his place at the bow and came toward Boric. Boric noticed water splashing under the boy's feet. Boric looked down and saw water gathering in the bilge. "Start bailing!" he yelled. "What, master?" Realizing the boy didn't understand that term either, he said, "Get the bucket from the locker and start scooping up water and pouring it out." The boy turned, got the bucket, and began bailing out the water. For an hour or so it seemed the boy kept even with the oncoming water, but after another hour of exhausting work, the water had gathered about his ankles. Boric ordered him to switch places, and he took over. After another hour, it was clear, even when bailing at the furious rate, it would pull an eventually hopeless undertaking. Sooner or later, the boat was going to sink. The only question seemed to be when and where. Boric glanced to the south and saw that not only had the coastline been running southwest, away from them, but their course was northwest, to the Straits of Darkness. By this reckoning, they were now as far away from the coastline as they could get, slightly northeast of Renon, where the coastline would turn northward. Boric had to make a quick choice, either head for the south shore, or hope that between Sully and himself they could keep the boat afloat long enough to reach the coast somewhere south of Limeth. As he was about equal distance between either part of the shoreline, he decided his best choice was to keep as much speed as possible and hold his present course. As the sun sped westward, Boric and Sully alternated bailing out the boat and keeping it pointed toward Limeth. Near sundown, a scattering of clouds appeared in the north, and the wind turned, now blowing into their faces. As the Panache was decent enough travelling into the eye of the wind, but Boric doubted that they would survive long enough to reach land if it started to rain. As he considered this, the first drops hit him in the face, and less than an hour later the rain began to fall in earnest. As the sun rose, a ship was upon them. Boric had seen its approach for the last hour, as it suddenly had appeared out of the pre-dawn gloom. Both the prince and Sully, exhausted from the night's bailing to keep afloat, could barely move. Yet Boric mustered what little energy he possessed and stood up. They had taken the sail at sundown and decided it was better to drift in the dark and have both of them bail periods than to sail blindly in the dark. The sound of the breakers would alert them of any chance of coming close to the shore. The only problem was that Boric didn't have any idea how the currents in this part of the Bittersea ran. The ship was a small three-masted merchantman, square-rigged with a lantern sail on the back. It could have come from any nation on the Bittersea, so it could be their salvation or their doom. When the ship was close enough for him to be heard, Boric yelled, "What ship?" The captain of the vessel came to the rail as he ordered the helm put over, bringing the ship to slow pace as it passed Boric's sinking pinnace, wallowing on the chop. "The Good Traveller, out of Bordon." "Where are you bound?" "Bound for Farafa," came the reply. Boric's heart began to beat again. It was a free city trader bound for the Empire City on the Dragon Sea. "Have you berths for two?" The captain looked down at the ragged pair in their rapidly wallowing boat and said, "Have you the price for passage?" Boric did not wish to part with the coins he had taken from Salea, as he knew they would need them later. He said, "No, but we can work." "I've all the hands I need," called back the captain. Boric knew by stories that the captain would not likely leave them to drown. Sailors' superstition forbade it, but he could exact a price of the indenture for several cruises. Seamen were an inconstant lot, and keeping a steady crew was difficult. The captain was bargaining. Boric pulled out a rusty fishing knife and brandished it. "Then I order you to strike your colours. You're all my prisoners." The captain stared wide-eyed in disbelief, then began to laugh. Soon every sailor on the ship was laughing uproariously. After a moment of genuine amusement, the captain called out, "Bring the madman and the boy aboard, then make for the straits." And so ends Chapter 8 of Prince of the Blood, my friends. Only 20 minutes after our traditional end time. But because we are so far after the traditional end time, I'm going to have to leave you all without song for today, my friends. And for that, I apologize. But I promise it is because a great many things need to be done, and those things are all for the love and benefit of the tavern folk. So, if you're over on the Twitch portal, my friends, we're going to raid out to share the love. But for everyone else, this is where we end tonight. I want to thank everyone who tipped the tavern keeper, who liked and who shared, who followed this evening. We welcome you into the tavern. I look forward to sharing more stories with you. Bobby, it was wonderful to see you. To all of our wonderful barkeeps, thank you for the work that you do. Milu, Bear, Matty, Tyson, have a good night, my friends. Haben Sie einen wunderbaren Nacht, Tyson. I wish you a good night. So, I hope that you all have a wonderful evening, and we will see you all on Sunday for Storytime with the lady. So I will put on some song for you, and then I will find someone for our Twitch friends to raid. So, my friends, until next time, I will bid you all stay bloodthirsty, and I will see you next time. Have a good night, my friends. Rest well.
Yeah, 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 yeah. silence the truth is found. Stand tall. The heart is a fire.